I can't go. Those three words, whispered by a woman worth $40 million, would haunt mechanic Cole Maddox for the rest of his life. Because he'd heard them before from his dying wife 5 years ago in their darkened bedroom while their daughter slept. Back then, he'd listened. He'd waited. And by morning, she was gone. Tonight, in a rain-soaked alley behind the city's most expensive restaurant, Cole heard those words again. This time, he wouldn't wait. This time, he would fight, even if it meant dragging a terrified millionaire through the very doors that had stolen everything from him. This is their story. Stay until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this journey travels. The rain came down in sheets that Friday night, turning the narrow service alley behind Chateau Blanchard into a river of grease and garbage. Cole Maddox crouched beside his battered Ford Transit van, wrestling with a socket wrench that had seen better days, muttering curses that would have earned him a sharp look from his daughter if she'd been there to hear them. But Emma was safe at home with Mrs. Chen from 4B, probably already asleep with that ratty stuffed rabbit she refused to let him wash, which meant Cole could take this late-night emergency call, a catering van with a blown gasket, and make the $300 that would cover her field trip next week, and maybe, if he was lucky, leave enough for a decent dinner that didn't come from a box. The wrench slipped. Cole's knuckles scraped against the undercarriage, drawing blood. Son of a... He pulled back, sucking on his scraped knuckles, tasting copper and motor oil. 43 years old and still busting his hands for pocket change. His wife Sarah would have had something to say about that. Something gentle and devastating, the way she always did. 5 years gone, and he still heard her voice in moments like these. Cole wiped his hands on his already filthy coveralls and bent back to the task. The catering company's van wasn't going anywhere tonight. The gasket was shot to hell, and even if he could patch it, they'd need a full replacement by Monday. But they were paying him for the diagnosis and the tow setup, so he'd finish the job. That's when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the rain or the distant traffic on Lexington Avenue. A gasp, sharp and frightened, followed by the unmistakable crack of expensive heels hitting wet pavement too hard. Cole's head snapped up. At the far end of the alley, maybe 30 yards away, a woman in a floor-length gown stumbled against the brick wall. Even in the dim wash of the single working streetlight, Cole could see the shimmer of her dress. Something silver or gold. Definitely not the kind of thing you wore to take out the trash. She clutched her right side, bent almost double. Behind her, the service door to Chateau Blanchard stood propped open with a rubber wedge, spilling warm yellow light and the faint sound of classical music onto the wet pavement. Someone shouted from inside, a woman's voice, sharp with concern. Cole straightened, his mechanic's instincts already cataloging details. The way the woman in the gown swayed, the unnatural pallor of her face, visible even from this distance, the hand pressed against her abdomen like she was trying to hold something inside. He'd seen this before. "Ma'am?" Cole called out, already moving toward her. "You all right?" The woman's head turned toward him, and for a moment their eyes met across the rain-soaked alley. Even from here, Cole could see the fear in her face, raw and animal, the kind of fear that had nothing to do with a stranger approaching in the dark. She opened her mouth to speak, then her knees buckled, and she went down hard. Cole ran. His boots splashed through puddles and scattered trash, his heart hammering against his ribs with a rhythm that had nothing to do with the exertion. He'd run like this before 5 years ago, down a hospital corridor while a code blue alarm shrieked overhead. He'd been too late then. He wouldn't be too late now. The woman had caught herself on her hands and knees, her designer gown soaking up alley water and God knows what else. Her breathing came in short, sharp gasps. Up close, Cole could see she was younger than he'd first thought. Mid-30s maybe, with dark hair pulled back in some complicated arrangement that was coming apart in the rain. Diamond earrings caught the light. And her face. Jesus. Her face was the color of old newspaper. "Ma'am, I need you to talk to me." Cole dropped to one knee beside her, his hands hovering, uncertain. "What's wrong? What hurts?" "Can't." She forced the word through gritted teeth. "Can't breathe. Can't." "Okay, that's okay. I'm here now." Cole kept his voice level, the way he'd learned to do when Emma had nightmares. Calm, steady, like everything was going to be fine, even when it wasn't. "My name's Cole. I'm a mechanic, not a doctor, but I've had some first aid training. Can you tell me where it hurts?" The woman's right hand was still pressed against her side, just below her ribs. When Cole reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, she didn't pull away. He touched her hand gently, felt how cold her fingers were despite the humid summer air. "Here?" he asked. "Your right side?" She nodded, and the movement seemed to cost her something. A small sound escaped her throat, not quite a moan, more like a whimper she was trying desperately to suppress. Behind them, footsteps clattered on the service steps. A young woman in black slacks and a white shirt burst through the door, her face twisted with panic. She was maybe 25, with tortoiseshell glasses and the kind of carefully maintained composure that was cracking around the edges. "Ms. Hale!" The young woman rushed forward, then stopped short when she saw Cole kneeling beside her employer. "Who are you? Get away from her!" "Easy," Cole said without looking up. "I'm trying to help. You need to call 911 right now." "No!" The word came from the woman on the ground, Ms. Hale, apparently, with surprising force. She grabbed Cole's wrist, her grip weak but desperate. "No ambulance, no hospital, I won't." Cole's stomach dropped. Those words, that terror in her voice. He'd heard this before, exactly this, in his darkened bedroom 5 years ago, when Sarah had woken him at 3 in the morning with pain in her chest and arms going numb. When he'd reached for his phone to call 911 and she'd grabbed his hand just like this woman was doing now. "Don't," Sarah had whispered. "I can't go to the hospital, Cole. Not again. Not after last time. I can't do it." And he'd listened. He'd made her tea and held her and promised it would be okay, that they'd see their regular doctor in the morning. He'd believed her when she said it was just anxiety, just stress, just the panic attacks she'd been having since her mother's long hospital death the year before. By morning, Sarah had been cold in his arms, and the EMTs who'd finally come had looked at him with something between pity and accusation. Cole blinked hard, forcing himself back to the present. To this woman. This moment. This chance. "Listen to me." He leaned closer, pitching his voice low so only Ms. Hale could hear. "My wife said those exact same words. 5 years ago, when she woke up with chest pain. She was terrified of hospitals after watching her mom die in one. So I listened. I made her comfortable. I told her we'd wait until morning." Ms. Hale's eyes, a startling green even in the dim light, locked onto his face. "She died," Cole said quietly. "Heart attack at 37. The EMTs told me she would have lived if I'd called immediately, but I listened to her fear instead of my instincts." The rain pounded down around them. Somewhere in the distance, a car horn blared. "So I'm telling you now," Cole continued, his hand still covering hers where it gripped his wrist. "I won't make that mistake again. I won't let another person die because they're too afraid to get help." Ms. Hale stared at him. Her lips trembled. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible above the rain. "My mother died in a hospital. I was 9. They wouldn't let me see her at the end. I've been—" She gasped, her body curling tighter around the pain. 23 years. Haven't set foot in one since." I know," Cole said, even though he couldn't possibly know. Not really. "I know you're terrified, but you're going to die right here in this alley if we don't move. Is that how you want this to end?" The assistant, still hovering behind them, made a strangled sound. "Miss Hale, please. Let me call Claire." Ms. Hale's voice was steadier now, though her face had gone even paler if that was possible. "Get Marcus. Tell him to bring the car around front." "The car?" Cole shook his head. "Ma'am, you need an ambulance. I won't go in an ambulance." Ms. Hale's fingers dug into his wrist. "I can't. The sirens, the lights, She broke off, gasping again. "But if you have a vehicle, if someone could—" She was looking at him. Really looking at him, like she was trying to see past the dirty coveralls and grease-stained hands to something underneath. Cole's mind raced. His van was right there, 15 yards away. It was dirty and cluttered and smelled like motor oil and the strawberry air freshener Emma had insisted on hanging from the mirror. It had a bench seat in the back where he sometimes napped on his lunch breaks, and it was absolutely not an appropriate vehicle for transporting a medical emergency. But it was there. And she was dying. He'd seen the signs, The gray pallor, the way she was holding her side, the shallow, rapid breathing. If this was what he thought it was, appendicitis maybe, or something worse, then every minute mattered. Sarah's face flashed through his mind. The way she'd looked that morning, so still and peaceful, like she was sleeping, like he could just wait a little longer before calling for help. "My van's right there," Cole heard himself say. "It's not clean and it's not comfortable, but it'll get you to St. Catherine's in 10 minutes. That's the closest ER. Ms. Hale's grip on his wrist tightened. "No sirens? No ambulance?" "No sirens," Cole confirmed. Just me driving like hell." "Then go." The words came out between gritted teeth. "Please, before I lose my nerve." Claire had already disappeared back into the restaurant, presumably to find this Marcus person. Cole looked up at the open service door, at the warm light and safety, and the kind of people who ate at restaurants where the entrees probably cost more than his monthly rent. He should wait. He should make them call 911, wait for the professionals, let someone else take responsibility. But that's what he'd done before. And Sarah was dead. Cole slid one arm under Ms. Hale's knees, the other around her back. "This is going to hurt," he warned. "I'm sorry." "Just do it," she whispered. He lifted her in one smooth motion, trying to ignore how light she was, how her expensive gown hung like silver water in his arms. She bit back a scream, her body going rigid with pain, her fingers clutching at his coveralls. "I've got you," Cole said, already moving toward his van. "I've got you." The rain soaked them both as he carried her across the alley. Ms. Hale had her face pressed against his shoulder, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps against his neck. Cole could feel her shaking, whether from pain or fear or cold, he couldn't tell. Probably all three. His van's side door was unlocked. Cole fumbled with the handle, got it open, and maneuvered Ms. Hale as gently as he could onto the bench seat in the back. Someone, Emma, probably, had left a fleece blanket wadded up in the corner. Cole grabbed it, shook out the worst of the dog hair, Mrs. Chen's ancient poodle shed like a dandelion, and draped it over Ms. Hale's trembling form. "Lie on your left side if you can," he instructed, trying to remember his first aid training from a decade ago. "Keep pressure off the pain." Ms. Hale curled onto her side, both hands pressed against her abdomen. In the van's dome light, Cole could see sweat beading on her forehead despite the chill. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere except the driver's seat." Cole pulled off his soaking wet outer coveralls, leaving him in his t-shirt and work pants. He balled up the coveralls and tucked them under Ms. Hale's head as a makeshift pillow. "We're moving in 30 seconds. He slammed the side door and vaulted into the driver's seat. The engine turned over on the first try, thank God for small mercies, and Cole threw the van into gear. The catering company's van was blocking most of the alley, but there was just enough room to squeeze past if he didn't mind scraping paint. He minded, but not as much as he minded the woman dying in his back seat. Metal shrieked against brick as Cole forced the van through the gap. He winced, made a mental note to fix that later if he wasn't arrested for kidnapping a millionaire, and hit the gas as soon as they cleared the alley mouth. Lexington Avenue opened up before them, relatively clear for a Friday night. Cole turned right, heading north toward St. Catherine's. The hospital was maybe 2 miles away, 10 minutes in good traffic, 15 in bad. He had no idea what they were looking at tonight. "How you doing back there?" Cole called over his shoulder, accelerating through a yellow light. "Terrible." Ms. Hale's voice was tight but steady. "Don't stop." Wasn't planning on it. Cole checked his mirrors, changed lanes to get around a slow-moving taxi. The rain hammered against the windshield. "Talk to me. Keep me updated. If you pass out, I need to know." "Why do you care?" The question came out raw. "You don't know me. I'm nobody to you." Cole took a corner faster than he should have, felt the van's back end slip slightly on the wet pavement. He corrected smoothly, years of driving in bad weather taking over. "You're somebody," he said. "That's enough. Somebody who's probably dying in the back of your work van." "You're not dying, not on my watch." Cole's hands tightened on the wheel. "I told you, I already failed once. I'm not doing it again." A long silence from the back. Cole risked a glance in the rear-view mirror. Ms. Hale was curled tight around her pain, but her eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling of the van. Emma's drawings were taped up there. Stick figures holding hands, a house with a crooked chimney, a flower garden that was mostly green scribbles. "Your daughter?" Ms. Hale asked quietly. "Yeah. Emma. She's 7. Cole turned onto Madison, heading for the hospital's main entrance. 3 more minutes. "She likes to decorate my van, says it's too boring otherwise." "She's right. It is boring." A pause. "Was, before the art gallery." Despite everything, Cole felt his mouth twitch toward a smile. "I'll tell her you said so. She'll be thrilled." "Your wife, the one who—" Ms. Hale's breath hitched. "You said she was 37? "Yeah." The word came out harder than Cole intended. Massive heart attack. By the time I called 911, it was too late. The EMTs said if I'd called immediately, she would have had a 90% survival rate. But I waited, because she asked me to. "You can't blame yourself for that." Cole's laugh was bitter. "Can't I? I knew something was wrong. Every instinct I had screamed at me to call for help. But I listened to her fear instead." He braked hard, catching a red light. St. Catherine's main entrance was visible now, 3 blocks ahead. "So when I heard you say those same words tonight, 'I can't go,' I knew I'd rather drag you to that hospital kicking and screaming than watch another person die because fear got in the way." The light changed. Cole accelerated through the intersection. "That's why you helped me," Ms. Hale said softly. "Not because of who I am or what I'm worth. You don't even know who I am, do you?" "Should I?" Cole took a left, cutting across 2 lanes of traffic. Someone honked. He ignored them. "Lady, I spend 12 hours a day under cars. The only famous people I know are the ones Emma talks about from her cartoons." Another silence. Then, so quietly Cole almost missed it. "Vivian. My name is Vivian." "Nice to meet you, Vivian, though I wish it was under better circumstances." Cole pulled into the hospital's emergency entrance, ignoring the no parking signs. He threw the van into park and killed the engine. "All right, this is it. Last chance to back out." He heard Vivian's sharp intake of breath. Through the rearview mirror, he watched her stare at the hospital's automatic doors, those wide glass panels that slid open to reveal the fluorescent-lit interior beyond. Even from here, Cole could see her starting to shake. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't do this. I thought I could, but—" Cole was out of the driver's seat and yanking open the side door before she could finish. He crouched beside the bench seat, meeting Vivian's terrified eyes. "You know what my wife told me once?" Cole kept his voice low, gentle. "She said fear is a liar. It tells us stories about what might happen, and those stories are almost always worse than reality. The only way to beat fear is to call its bluff." She was afraid of hospitals too? Terrified, after watching her mom die in one. Cole reached out slowly, giving Vivian time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her cold hand in his. "And you know what? She was right to be afraid. Hospitals are scary places. People die in them. But people also live because of them. And right now, you've got about a 50-50 shot of walking out of this place on your own 2 feet someday. But only if you go through those doors right now." Vivian's hand trembled in his. "What if I can't?" "Then I'll carry you, just like I did in the alley." Cole squeezed her fingers gently. "Fear stole my wife from me, Vivian, from Emma. I won't let it steal you too." "You don't even know me." "I know enough." Cole glanced toward the ER entrance where a security guard had noticed his van and was starting to approach. "I know you're smart enough to be scared, brave enough to get in my van, and stubborn enough to still be conscious when you probably shouldn't be. That's enough for me." The security guard tapped on the driver's window. Cole ignored him. "I need you to make a choice," he told Vivian. "Right now. Because in about 30 seconds, that guard is going to call for backup, and then we'll have a whole situation. So, are you going to walk through those doors with me, or am I carrying you?" Vivian's eyes were huge in her pale face. She looked at the hospital entrance, at the guard, at Cole's face, at Emma's crayon drawings on the van's ceiling. Her breathing was rapid and shallow, right on the edge of hyperventilation. Then, with visible effort, she nodded. Walk, she whispered. I'll walk. Just don't let go of my hand. Wasn't planning on it. Cole helped her sit up, moving as gently as he could. Vivian's face went gray, and for a moment he thought she might pass out. But she breathed through it, her grip on his hand tight enough to hurt. Together, they made it to the van's door. Cole jumped down first, then helped Vivian slide to the edge of the seat. Her designer gown was ruined, soaked with rain and alley water, torn at the hem, covered in grease stains from his van. The elaborate updo had come completely apart, dark hair hanging in wet tangles around her face. She looked nothing like a millionaire real estate mogul. She looked like a terrified woman trying not to die. One step at a time, Cole said. That's all we're doing. One step, then another, then another. You focus on that. I'll handle everything else. Vivian's feet touched the pavement. She swayed, and Cole wrapped an arm around her waist to steady her. Even through the pain and fear, he could feel how tense she was. Every muscle locked tight, like her body was trying to bolt in the opposite direction while her mind forced it forward. The security guard had reached them now, his radio crackling. Sir, you can't park here. This is emergency vehicle only. Call for a wheelchair, Cole cut him off. And get a doctor, now. Possible appendicitis? Patient has been symptomatic for at least an hour, maybe longer. The guard's eyes went wide as he took in Vivian's condition. Whatever he'd been about to say died on his lips. He grabbed his radio. I need a wheelchair at the main entrance, stat. And get Dr. Morrison if he's available. Thank you, Vivian breathed. They were moving now, one slow step at a time, crossing the 10 feet of pavement that separated the van from those automatic doors. To Cole, it felt like miles. He could feel Vivian shaking against his side. Could hear the rapid-fire breathing that meant she was right on the edge of a full panic attack, 5 feet from the doors. My mother, Vivian said suddenly, her voice tight and high. She was fine when we got to the hospital, just a bad cough. They said it was pneumonia, that they'd give her antibiotics and she'd be home in a few days, but then she gasped, stumbling. Cole caught her. Then something went wrong, an infection, sepsis, and they wouldn't let me see her. I was 9, and they said I was too young, and I heard her screaming, and I couldn't. 3 feet. Look at me. Cole stopped walking, turned Vivian to face him. Her eyes were wild, unfocused. Not at the doors, at me. Right here. I'm right here. Vivian's gaze locked onto his face. That was 23 years ago, Cole said quietly. Different hospital, different doctors, different situation. You're not 9 anymore, Vivian. You're in control now. And I'm not leaving your side unless they physically drag me away. You understand? A tear tracked down her cheek. You promise? Cole thought of Sarah, cold in their bed. Of Emma asking why Mommy wouldn't wake up. Of the 5 years he'd spent drowning in guilt and regret. I promise, he said. The automatic doors sensed their presence and slid open with a mechanical whisper. Vivian made a sound, half sob, half gasp, and her whole body went rigid. The smell of the hospital rolled over them, disinfectant and floor wax and something underneath that might have been fear or might have been hope, depending on which side of the doors you were standing on. I can't, Vivian whispered. Cole, I can't. Yes, you can. Cole's arm tightened around her waist. One more step, that's all, just one. I can't. You can. Because you're stronger than your fear, because you deserve to live, because somewhere out there someone loves you and needs you to come home. Cole paused. And because I need you to prove that not everyone has to die from being too afraid. Vivian looked at him, really looked at him, past the dirty t-shirt and the grease under his fingernails and the desperation in his eyes. She saw something there that made her straighten slightly, made her take a breath that was deeper than the ones before. Okay, she whispered. Okay. And she stepped through the doors. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, Vivian's knees buckled. Cole caught her, taking her full weight as she collapsed against him. But they were inside now. They'd made it. Wheelchair, the security guard shouted, running alongside them. I need that wheelchair now. The ER waiting room opened up before them, fluorescent lights and plastic chairs, and the sound of a TV playing the news too loud. A man with a bloody towel wrapped around his hand looked up. A mother bouncing a feverish toddler paused mid-bounce. Everyone turned to stare at the mechanic in a grimy t-shirt carrying a woman in an evening gown through the doors. Cole ignored them all. His focus was on Vivian, who had buried her face against his shoulder and was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. He could feel her rapid pulse against his arm, could hear the whimpers she was trying desperately to suppress. "You're okay," he murmured into her hair. "You did it. You're inside. The hard part's over." "Mr. Maddox!" A nurse appeared at his elbow, young, competent-looking, with kind eyes and purple scrubs. "I'm Sarah. Let's get her into exam room 3. Of course the nurse's name was Sarah. The universe had a sick sense of humor. "Can you walk?" Nurse Sarah asked Vivian gently. Vivian shook her head against Cole's shoulder. "All right, honey. That's fine." The nurse gestured toward a gurney that had appeared from somewhere. "Right here. Let's get you lying down." Cole lowered Vivian onto the gurney as carefully as he could. Her hand shot out, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes, those startling green eyes, were wide with panic. "Don't leave," she gasped. "Please, you promised." "I'm right here." Cole let her keep hold of his wrist. "I'm not going anywhere." "Sir, you'll need to stay in the waiting room while we examine," Nurse Sarah began. "I'm staying with her." Cole's voice left no room for argument. "She has severe hospital phobia. I'm the only thing keeping her from having a complete breakdown. So unless you want your patient fighting you every step of the way, I suggest you let me come back." The nurse looked from Cole to Vivian, who was gripping his wrist like a lifeline, her breathing rapid and shallow, and made a decision. "Fine, but you stay out of the way and follow all instructions. Clear?" "Crystal." They wheeled Vivian through a set of double doors into the ER proper. The chaos back here was controlled but intense. Doctors and nurses moving between rooms, machines beeping, someone moaning in pain behind a curtain. Vivian's grip on Cole's wrist tightened with every sound, every smell, every visual reminder that she was inside her worst nightmare. Exam room 3 was small and sterile, with equipment Cole couldn't name mounted on the walls. They transferred Vivian from the gurney to the exam table, and she didn't release her death grip on Cole's wrist the entire time. "All right, sweetie." Nurse Sarah pulled on gloves with practiced efficiency. "I need to get your vitals, okay? That means I'm going to put this cuff on your arm to check your blood pressure, and this little thing on your finger to check your oxygen levels. Is that okay?" Vivian nodded jerkily, but her eyes never left Cole's face. "You're doing great," Cole told her quietly. He positioned himself so he could stand beside the exam table, his free hand covering hers where it gripped his wrist. "Just keep breathing, in through your nose, out through your mouth, like we practiced in the van." "In the van I wasn't—" Vivian broke off, gasping as Nurse Sarah touched her abdomen. "I wasn't in a hospital." "You're right. This is different." Cole squeezed her hand. "This is where we save your life instead of watching you die in an alley. That's a pretty big difference, don't you think?" Despite everything, Vivian's mouth twitched. "Your bedside manner could use work." "Good thing I'm a mechanic, not a doctor." Nurse Sarah worked quickly, taking Vivian's blood pressure elevated, her pulse rapid, her temperature slightly high, her oxygen saturation lower than it should be. She asked questions. "When did the pain start? Where exactly? Any nausea, vomiting? When was your last meal?" And Vivian answered in short, clipped sentences while keeping her eyes locked on Cole. The whole time, Cole stood there like an anchor, letting Vivian squeeze his wrist until his fingers went numb, murmuring encouragement whenever her breathing got too fast or her eyes got too wide. He'd failed Sarah. He wouldn't fail this woman. A doctor pushed through the curtain, late 40s, graying beard, the kind of calm competence that came from 20 years in emergency medicine. His name tag read Dr. James Morrison. "I'm Dr. Morrison," he said, moving to Vivian's other side. "I hear we've got some abdominal pain tonight. Let's take a look, shall we?" He glanced at Cole. "And you are?" "Cole Maddox. I brought her in." "Her husband?" Dr. Morrison asked, already palpating Vivian's abdomen with careful fingers. "No," Cole said. "Just someone who refused to let her die in an alley." The doctor's eyebrows rose, but he didn't comment. Instead, he focused on Vivian, who had gone rigid under his touch. "Easy," Dr. Morrison said gently. "I'm just checking where it hurts. Can you tell me on a scale of 1 to 10? 10! Vivian gasped when his fingers found the spot. 10, 10, 10, stop! Dr. Morrison pulled back immediately, his expression grave. All right, I'm ordering an ultrasound and blood work. Sarah, let's get a CT scan scheduled too. I want a complete look at what we're dealing with. Nurse Sarah nodded and disappeared through the curtain. Dr. Morrison turned to Vivian. Ms. Hale. Vivian Hale. Recognition flashed across the doctor's face, quickly suppressed. Ms. Hale, based on your symptoms, I believe you may have acute appendicitis. That means your appendix is inflamed and potentially infected. If I'm right, we'll need to remove it surgically as soon as possible. But first, I need to run some tests to confirm the diagnosis. Vivian had gone perfectly still. Surgery? If the tests come back positive, yes. It's a very common procedure. I can't have surgery. Vivian's voice was rising, her breathing accelerating. I can't be. They'll put me under and I won't wake up. Just like my mother, she went under and she never. Hey, Cole leaned closer, blocking her view of Dr. Morrison. Look at me, right here. That's not going to happen. You don't know that? You're right, I don't. Nobody knows the future, but I know the statistics. Appendectomies are one of the safest surgeries there is. Thousands of people have them every day and walk out fine. Cole kept his voice low and steady. And I know that if your appendix bursts while you're sitting here panicking, you'll go septic, and that will kill you. So we don't really have the luxury of fear right now. He's right, Dr. Morrison added, his tone matter-of-fact. If this is appendicitis, and I'm 90% certain it is, then surgery isn't optional. It's necessary. Without it, you'll die. With it, you'll be back to normal in a few weeks. Vivian was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. I can't. I've avoided hospitals for 23 years. 23 years of terror every time I get sick, every time something hurts, because I swore I'd never end up here. And now, a sob caught in her throat. Now I'm going to die anyway, either from the surgery or from refusing it. So what was the point? Cole felt something crack open in his chest. This woman, this successful, powerful woman who probably commanded boardrooms and made decisions worth millions of dollars, was 19 years old. No, younger, 9 years old, watching her mother disappear behind hospital doors and never come back. He thought of Emma, of what she'd become if he died now, if he left her alone with nothing but fear and loss. Would she spend 23 years avoiding the things that scared her? Would she rather die than face her nightmares? No, not if he had anything to say about it. My daughter, Cole said quietly, drew me a picture last week. Want to know what it was? Vivian blinked at him, confused by the non sequitur. It was me and her, holding hands, standing in front of a giant monster. The monster had about 17 heads and was breathing fire and looked absolutely terrifying. Cole smiled slightly. I asked her what the monster was, and she said it was all the scary things in the world. Dentists and thunderstorms and the first day of school and shots at the doctor's office. Your daughter sounds wise, Vivian whispered. She's 7. She still believes in magic and thinks vegetables are a conspiracy. Cole's thumb traced gentle circles on the back of Vivian's hand. But you know what she told me about that monster? She said the only way to make it smaller is to look right at it. Every time you face something scary, the monster gets a little bit smaller. And every time you run away, it gets bigger. He paused, letting that sink in. You've been running for 23 years, he continued. And I bet that monster is enormous now, isn't it? Probably takes up your whole sky. But right now, right here, you have a chance to start making it smaller. To look right at the thing that terrifies you and say, not today. Vivian was crying openly now, silent tears tracking down her pale cheeks. What if I can't? Then I'll do it with you. Cole squeezed her hand, every step of the way, from the CT scan to the surgery to the recovery. I'll be right here, making sure you don't have to face the monster alone. Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. Mr. Maddox, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you won't be able to stay with Ms. Hale during surgery, hospital policy. Then I'll be right outside the operating room, Cole said, without looking away from Vivian. And I'll be the first face she sees when she wakes up. That's non-negotiable. You have a job, Vivian protested weakly. A A daughter. You can't just stay here. Emma's safe with Mrs. Chen. My jobs can wait. This can't. Cole's expression softened. Let me do this, Vivian. Let me prove that hospitals don't always take people away. Sometimes they give them back. For a long moment, Vivian just stared at him. Cole could see the war playing out behind her eyes, terror and hope, death and life, the past and the possibility of a future. Finally, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay, do the tests. Dr. Morrison exhaled, relief clear on his face. Good choice, Ms. Hale. Sarah, let's get that ultrasound started. And someone call up to surgery, let them know we may have an emergency appendectomy coming their way. The next hour passed in a blur of medical procedures and mounting tension. They wheeled Vivian to radiology for a CT scan, and Cole waited outside the room, watching through the window as she lay perfectly still on the scanning table, her eyes squeezed shut. When they brought her back, she reached for him immediately. The blood work came back showing elevated white blood cell count. The CT scan showed a swollen, inflamed appendix, not ruptured yet, thank God, but close. Too close. Dr. Morrison explained the surgery in careful detail. They'd make a small incision, they'd remove the appendix. She'd be under general anesthesia for about an hour. Barring complications, she'd be home in 2 or 3 days. Through it all, Vivian held Cole's hand like he was the only thing tethering her to earth. Finally, the pre-op nurse arrived with consent forms and a wheelchair. It was time. Mr. Maddox, you'll need to stay here, Nurse Sarah said gently. There's a surgical waiting room on the 4th floor. Someone will update you as soon as Ms. Hale is out of surgery. Cole looked at Vivian. She was ghostly pale, trembling, her pupils dilated with fear, but she nodded. Go, she whispered. I can do this. I can... Her voice cracked. Thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet. Cole squeezed her hand one last time. Thank me when you wake up and realize you survived your monster. They wheeled her away and Cole stood there in the empty exam room, suddenly aware of how exhausted he was. His back ached from carrying Vivian. His hands were still stained with grease from the repair job he'd abandoned hours ago. His wet clothes were starting to dry uncomfortably against his skin. He pulled out his phone, miraculously still functioning despite the rain, and called Mrs. Chen. Cole? She answered on the first ring. Is everything all right? Yeah, no, I don't know. Cole scrubbed a hand over his face. I'm at St. Catherine's. Someone needed help. I'm going to be here for a while longer. Can Emma stay with you tonight? Of course, of course. She's sleeping like an angel. But Cole, are you all right? Was he? Cole looked around the exam room at the medical equipment and the sharps container and the hand sanitizer dispenser. This was where Sarah had died. Not this exact room, but a place just like it, where they'd brought her body and covered her with a sheet and let him say goodbye to a woman who'd already been gone for hours. I'm trying to be, he said honestly. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I'll call you in the morning. He found the surgical waiting room on the 4th floor, a bland space with uncomfortable chairs and old magazines and a TV showing late-night infomercials. Cole collapsed into the chair near the window and stared out at the rain-soaked city, at the lights and the traffic, and the people going about their lives with no idea that in an operating room a few floors above them, a woman was fighting the scariest battle of her life. And he waited. The clock on the waiting room wall crawled past midnight, then 1 a.m., then deeper into the small hours when the world felt suspended between one day and the next. Cole sat in the same uncomfortable chair, watching the rain streak down the window, his mind replaying the moment Vivian's hand had slipped from his as they wheeled her away. He'd checked his phone 17 times. No calls, no updates. Just the passing minutes and the hollow feeling in his chest that felt too much like the night Sarah died. A cleaning woman pushed a cart past, headphones in, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd mopped these floors 1,000 times. She nodded at Cole. He nodded back. Two strangers sharing space in the smallest hours, both waiting for something. Morning, maybe, or just the end of a shift. Cole's phone buzzed. He grabbed it so fast he nearly dropped it. But it wasn't the hospital. It was Emma, texting from Mrs. Chen's iPad. Daddy, are you okay? Mrs. Chen says you had to help someone. Is it like when you helped Mr. Rodriguez fix his car in the rain? Cole's throat tightened. Emma's spelling was getting better. She was growing up so fast, learning to read and write and ask questions that didn't have easy answers. In a few more years, she'd be old enough to understand what really happened the night Sarah died. Old enough to ask why he hadn't called for help sooner. He typed back carefully. Something like that, sweetheart. Someone needed help getting to the hospital. I'm waiting to make sure they're okay. The 3 dots appeared immediately. Emma was supposed to be asleep, but apparently Mrs. Chen had the same trouble saying no that he did. Is it scary at the hospital? Cole looked around the waiting room, at the harsh fluorescent lights and the antiseptic smell and the other people scattered in chairs, all waiting for news about someone they loved. Yes, he wanted to text back. Yes, it's terrifying. Every second I sit here, I remember your mother and how I failed her. Instead, he wrote, a little. But sometimes we have to do scary things to help people. Remember what you told me about the monster? That you have to look at it to make it smaller. Exactly. I'm looking at my monsters tonight. You should be sleeping, Bug. Mrs. Chen says I can stay up until you text back. She made hot chocolate. Tell Mrs. Chen she's spoiling you. I love you. Go to sleep. Love you, Daddy. Bring me a hospital sticker if they have them. Cole smiled despite everything. Emma collected stickers the way some kids collected action figures. She had 3 full books of them organized by color and theme, and she guarded them like dragon's treasure. I'll see what I can do. Good night, sweetheart. He put the phone away and leaned back, closing his eyes. The waiting room chair was designed to prevent actual comfort, some kind of hospital conspiracy to keep people alert, probably. His back protested. His shoulders ached. He needed coffee or sleep or for time to move faster and deliver Vivian safely back to the world of the conscious. Mr. Maddox? Cole's eyes snapped open. A woman in surgical scrubs stood in the doorway. Not Dr. Morrison, someone younger, with dark circles under her eyes and tired hands. His stomach dropped. I'm Dr. Reeves, she said, moving toward him. I assisted with Ms. Hale's surgery. Cole was on his feet before he realized he'd moved. Is she? She's fine. The surgery went well. We removed the appendix before it ruptured, though it was close. Another hour, maybe 2, and we would have been dealing with peritonitis and a much more serious situation. Dr. Reeves pulled off her surgical cap, revealing hair pulled back in a messy bun. You got her here just in time. The relief hit Cole so hard his knees went weak. He sat back down heavily, pressing his palms against his eyes. Thank God. Thank God. She's in recovery now. Still under anesthesia, but she should wake up in the next 30 minutes or so. Dr. Reeves sat down in the chair beside him, which seemed unusual. Doctors didn't usually sit with people in waiting rooms. The nurses told me what you did, how you convinced her to come in despite her phobia. Cole lowered his hands. I didn't give her much choice. You gave her the only choice that mattered, life or death. Dr. Reeves studied him with the kind of intensity that made Cole think she saw more than he wanted her to. Most people would have called 911 and walked away. Let the professionals handle it. You didn't do that. I couldn't. The words came out rough. My wife died because I didn't push hard enough, because I respected her fear more than I trusted my instincts. I won't make that mistake twice. Dr. Reeves nodded slowly. The nurses also mentioned you promised to be there when Ms. Hale wakes up. That's unusual. You're not family. You're not even a friend, from what I understand. You're a stranger who happened to be in the right alley at the right time. So I'm breaking about 15 hospital protocols by telling you this, but I thought you should know. Dr. Reeves leaned forward, her voice dropping. When we were prepping Ms. Hale for surgery, she was fighting the sedation. Most patients go under quickly. Count backward from 10, they're out by 7. Not her. She made it all the way to 3, and you know what she kept saying? Cole shook his head. Tell Cole I kept my eyes open. Tell Cole I looked at the monster. Dr. Reeves's expression softened. Whatever you said to her in that exam room, it was the right thing. She went under still fighting. That's the kind of courage that keeps people alive. Cole's vision blurred. He blinked hard, willing himself to keep it together. Can I see her? When she wakes up? Recovery room policy says immediate family only. Dr. Reeves stood, stretching her back. but I think we can bend the rules this once. Wait here. I'll have someone come get you when she's ready." She left before Cole could thank her properly. He sat there, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of the last few hours settle into his bones. Somewhere in this building, Vivian was breathing. Her heart was beating. She was alive because he'd refused to let fear win. Maybe Sarah's death hadn't been for nothing after all. Maybe he'd learned something that mattered. 15 minutes later, a nurse appeared, different from Sarah, older, with kind eyes and an expression that suggested she'd seen everything twice. "Mr. Maddox, you can come back now, but keep it short. She needs rest." Cole followed her through a maze of corridors, past rooms where machines beeped and people slept and life continued its precarious dance with death. The recovery room was quieter than the ER, dimmer, filled with the soft sounds of breathing and the gentle chirp of monitors. Vivian was in the third bay, behind a half-drawn curtain. She looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, dwarfed by white sheets and medical equipment. An IV ran to her left arm. A blood pressure cuff was wrapped around her right. The diamond earrings were gone. Someone had removed them, probably. Standard procedure before surgery. Without them, and without the designer gown, she looked vulnerable and young, and nothing like a millionaire mogul. She looked like someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone who mattered to people Cole would never meet. Her eyes were closed, but as Cole approached, they fluttered open, unfocused at first, struggling against the lingering effects of anesthesia. Then they found his face and sharpened with recognition. "Cole?" Her voice was rough, barely above a whisper. "Hey." Cole pulled a chair close to the bed, sat down so they were at eye level. "Welcome back. I'm alive." She said it like she couldn't quite believe it, like she'd expected to go under and never wake up, just like her mother. "Very alive. Doctor says the surgery went perfectly. They got your appendix out before it could cause any real trouble." Cole reached out slowly, giving her time to refuse. When she didn't, he took her hand gently, careful of the IV. "You did it, Vivian. You looked right at your monster and survived." A tear slid from the corner of her eye, disappearing into her hair. "I counted backward. They told me to count, and I did. I made it to 3 before everything went dark. The doctor told me. She said you were still fighting the whole way down. I was so scared." Vivian's fingers tightened around his. I was sure I'd die like she did, that I'd go under and that would be it, the end. But it wasn't. You're here. You made it." Cole squeezed her hand gently. "And now you get to go home in a few days and tell everyone about the time you survived your worst nightmare." Vivian's laugh was weak but genuine. "Home? I don't even know what day it is. What time is it?" "Almost 2 in the morning. Technically Saturday now." "You've been here the whole time?" "Promised I would be, didn't I?" "You promised you'd be here when I woke up. You didn't promise to wait around for hours while I was unconscious." Vivian studied his face with eyes that were growing clearer as the anesthesia faded. "Why would you do that? You don't know me. If you say nobody again, I'm going to have to disagree more forcefully." Cole kept his tone light, but his eyes were serious. "You're somebody who needed help. That's all that matters." "It can't be all that matters. You have a daughter, a job, a life, and you spent your Friday night dragging a stranger to the hospital and then waiting to make sure she survived surgery." Vivian shook her head slightly, wincing at the motion. "That's not normal Good Samaritan behavior. That's something else." Cole was quiet for a long moment. Outside the recovery bay, machines beeped their steady rhythms. Someone coughed. A nurse's shoes squeaked on the polished floor. "You asked me earlier why I care," he said finally. "The truth is, I don't know if I can explain it in a way that makes sense. All I know is that when I heard you say, 'I can't go,' I heard my wife. And I heard every regret I've carried for 5 years. I heard the EMT telling me that if I'd called 15 minutes earlier, she would have lived. I heard my daughter asking why mommy wouldn't wake up, and I heard myself lying to her because I couldn't admit that I'd let Sarah die because I was too afraid to override her fear." Vivian's grip on his hand tightened. "So when you collapsed in that alley," Cole continued, "I had a choice. I could walk away, call 911, let someone else handle it. Or I could do what I should have done 5 years ago, fight for someone's life, even when they're too scared to fight for themselves. He met her eyes. I chose to fight. Not for you exactly. For the person I failed to be when it mattered most. You're wrong, Vivian whispered. Cole blinked. About what? You said you didn't do it for me. But you did. Vivian's eyes were bright with tears. Every word you said in that exam room, every time you held my hand and told me I could do it, that was for me. You saw me. Not the money or the reputation or whatever image I project to the world. You saw a terrified woman who needed someone to believe in her more than she believed in her fear. She paused, swallowing hard. I've built an empire, she continued quietly. I've closed deals worth millions. I've stood in boardrooms and negotiated with people who would eat me alive if I showed weakness. But tonight, in that alley, I was 9 years old again, helpless, terrified. And you... Her voice cracked. You didn't judge me. You didn't tell me to get over it, or that my fear was irrational. You just stood there and refused to let me die. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Cole didn't know what to say to that. He'd done what anyone should do, what he wished someone had done for Sarah. But looking at Vivian now, seeing the raw gratitude in her face, he realized she was right. In her world, maybe compassion without expectation really was rare. You're welcome, he said simply, and I'm glad you're alive to tell me I'm wrong. Vivian laughed, a real laugh this time, stronger. Then she winced, pressing her free hand against her abdomen. Oh God, don't make me laugh, everything hurts. Sorry, that's probably going to be a theme for the next few days. Cole glanced toward the nurse's station. I should let you rest. They're only letting me stay because I probably annoyed them into submission. Wait. Vivian's hand tightened around his before he could stand. Just a few more minutes, please. I don't want to be alone yet. The fear in her eyes was different now. Not the raw terror of facing the hospital, but something smaller and more human. The fear of waking up in a strange place, of being vulnerable, of facing the aftermath of the thing you've been running from for most of your life. Cole understood that fear. He'd lived it after Sarah died, when Emma would wake from nightmares, and he'd have to be strong even though he was falling apart inside. Okay, he said, settling back into the chair. A few more minutes, but then you need to sleep, and I need to get home before Emma wakes up and discovers I'm not there. Tell me about her, Emma. Vivian's eyes were starting to droop despite her best efforts to keep them open. The one who draws pictures of monsters. She's 7, smart as hell, stubborn as her mother. Cole felt himself smile despite the exhaustion pulling at him. She wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up, but only for dragons. I've tried explaining that dragons aren't real, but she's convinced I'm wrong. Maybe you are wrong. Maybe dragons are just very good at hiding. That's exactly what Emma says. Cole's thumb traced gentle patterns on the back of Vivian's hand. She's the reason I keep going. After Sarah died, there were days I didn't think I could. Days when getting out of bed felt impossible. But Emma needed me. She needed someone to make breakfast and walk her to school and tell her bedtime stories even when I wanted to fall apart. So I didn't fall apart. I just kept moving. That's love, Vivian murmured, her eyes fully closed now. The real kind. The kind that keeps you standing when everything else tries to break you. Yeah, I guess it is. They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments. Vivian's breathing was evening out, deepening. Cole thought she might be asleep, but then she spoke again, her voice drowsy and slurred with exhaustion and lingering anesthesia. My mother loved me like that, before she died. She worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat after my father left. She was always tired, always stressed, but she never missed a school play or a parent-teacher conference. And when she got sick, Vivian's breath hitched. She went to the hospital because she didn't want me to worry. She thought she'd be home in a few days. She promised me. Cole stayed quiet, letting her talk. They wouldn't let me see her at the end. Said I was too young, that I wouldn't understand. But I heard her screaming. I heard the machines and the doctors shouting, and I knew. A tear tracked down her cheek. I knew she was dying and I couldn't help her. I was 9 years old and completely powerless. I'm sorry, Cole said softly. No kid should have to go through that. I inherited everything when I turned 18. Insurance money, savings she'd hidden away, everything she'd worked so hard for. I used it to build Hale Properties. Every deal I closed, every building I developed, I told myself I was honoring her memory, making something of the sacrifice she made. Vivian's voice was fading, sleep pulling her under. But the truth is, I was just running from hospitals and doctors and the fear that I'd end up like her, dead behind doors I couldn't open. You're not running anymore, Cole said. You walked through those doors tonight. You faced it. Only because you made me. Vivian's words were barely intelligible now. You and your daughter's monster drawing, Cole smiled. I'll tell Emma she helped save a life. She'll probably want a medal. She can have one. I'll have one made. Gold. With dragons. She'd love that. Vivian didn't respond. Her breathing had gone deep and even, her hand relaxed in his. Cole carefully extracted his fingers from her grip and stood, pulling the thin hospital blanket higher on her shoulders. She looked peaceful now, the lines of pain and fear smoothed from her face. The nurse appeared at his elbow, silent as a ghost. Time to go, Mr. Maddox. She needs rest, and you look like you need it even more. Yeah. Cole took one last look at Vivian, alive, breathing, safe. When she wakes up again, can someone tell her I'll check in tomorrow? Later today, I mean. You planning to come back? I promised I'd be here for the whole thing, surgery, recovery, all of it. Cole shrugged. I don't break promises anymore. The nurse's expression softened. I'll make sure she knows. Now get some sleep before you fall over. Cole made his way back through the maze of corridors, past the ER that had started all this, through the automatic doors that had terrified Vivian so much. His van was still parked in the emergency bay, probably racked up $300 in parking violations by now. He didn't care. The rain had stopped. Dawn was starting to break over the city, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. Cole climbed into his van, sat in the driver's seat, and let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for 5 years. Vivian was alive. He'd fought for her, and she'd survived. Maybe that didn't erase what happened with Sarah. Maybe nothing ever would. But it meant something. It had to mean something. Cole pulled out his phone and texted Mrs. Chen that he was on his way home. Then he started the engine and drove through the empty morning streets, past buildings just waking up, and people beginning their Saturday routines. Everything looked different in the dawn light, softer somehow, like the world had reset overnight. When he got home, Emma was curled up on Mrs. Chen's couch, still asleep, clutching that ratty rabbit, Mrs. Chen was dozing in her chair, a blanket pulled over her lap, the TV playing quietly. Cole lifted Emma carefully, whispered his thanks to Mrs. Chen, and carried his daughter upstairs to their apartment. She stirred as he tucked her into her bed, her eyes opening halfway. Daddy? I'm here, Bug. Go back to sleep. Did you help the person? Are they okay? Cole smoothed her hair back from her forehead, felt the familiar ache in his chest that came from loving someone so much it physically hurt. Yeah, she's okay. She was very brave. Did you tell her about the monster? I did. She said you were very smart for thinking of it. Emma smiled sleepily. I am smart. And you're brave too, Daddy. I try to be. Mommy would be proud of you. The words hit Cole like a fist to the chest. He had to close his eyes for a moment, had to breathe through the sudden spike of grief that still caught him off guard sometimes. You think so? He managed. I know so. She told me once that you had the biggest heart of anyone she ever met, even when you're scared. Emma yawned, burrowing deeper into her blankets. That's why you're a good daddy. I love you, sweetheart. Love you too. Did you get me a sticker? Cole laughed despite everything. Hospital was closed. I'll get you one next time. Promise? Promise. Emma was asleep again within seconds. Cole stood there watching her breathe, feeling the weight of the night settle into something manageable. He'd done it. He'd saved someone. And tomorrow, later today, he'd go back to the hospital and make sure Vivian continued being okay. But first, he needed to sleep. Cole stumbled to his own room, didn't bother changing out of his dirty clothes, and collapsed onto his bed. The last thing he remembered before sleep claimed him was the sound of Emma's soft breathing through the wall, steady and sure as a heartbeat. When he woke 6 hours later, his phone was full of messages. 3 from Claire, Vivian's assistant, who'd apparently gotten his number from the hospital. They ranged from professionally polite inquiries about his well-being to something approaching genuine gratitude. The last one included an address for Vivian's office and an invitation to visit when he had time. 2 from the catering company whose van he'd abandoned, asking where their vehicle was and whether the repair was done. Cole texted back an apology and a promise to finish the job by Monday. And 1 from an unknown number, sent at 9 a.m. "This is Vivian. Claire gave me your number. They're releasing me tomorrow instead of in 3 days. Something about exceptional recovery and insurance complications. Would you mind driving me home? I don't think I can face a cab. I'll pay you, obviously." Cole read the message 3 times. The old him, the pre-alley, pre-confrontation with his demons him, would have found a polite way to decline. Would have said he'd done his part, she was fine now, she could hire a proper car service. But that version of Cole had died somewhere between the alley and the ER doors. He texted back, "Don't need payment. What time?" The response came within seconds. 2 p.m. "Thank you for everything." Cole set his phone down and stared at his ceiling, at the water stain in the corner that looked like a lopsided star. His back ached, his hands were still stained with grease. He needed coffee and a shower and to figure out how to explain to Emma why he was going back to the hospital. But underneath all that, he felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Hope, maybe, or purpose. Or just the simple satisfaction of knowing that when it mattered, when someone's life hung in the balance, he'd chosen right. His phone buzzed again. Emma, texting from her room. "Are you awake? Can we have pancakes?" Cole smiled. "Yes and yes. Come help me make them." He heard Emma's feet hit the floor, heard her racing down the hallway. She burst into his room with her hair sticking up in 17 directions and that rabbit tucked under her arm. "Did you really help someone last night?" she asked, bouncing on her toes. "Mrs. Chen said you were a hero, but she wouldn't tell me any details." "I helped someone get to the hospital when they were too scared to go. That's all." "That is being a hero, Daddy. That's exactly what heroes do." Emma grabbed his hand, tugging him toward the kitchen. "Tell me about it while we make pancakes. Tell me everything." So Cole did. He told her about the woman in the alley, and the rain, and the fear that almost won. He told her about the monster drawing and how sometimes the scariest thing is the thing that saves you. He left out the parts about his wife, about the guilt and the grief and the desperate need for redemption. Emma was 7. She didn't need to carry that weight. What she needed was to know that her father would fight for people, that courage meant being afraid and doing it anyway, that monsters got smaller when you looked right at them. They made pancakes together. Emma insisted on chocolate chips shaped like smiley faces and ate them while watching cartoons. Normal Saturday morning things. But Cole felt different somehow, like he'd shed a skin he'd been wearing for too long. At 1:30, he showered and changed into his least-stained jeans and a button-down shirt Emma said made him look fancy like the dads on TV. Mrs. Chen agreed to watch Emma again, though she gave Cole a knowing look that suggested she understood more than he'd told her. "This woman," Mrs. Chen said quietly while Emma was in the bathroom. "She's special to you?" "I barely know her." "That wasn't what I asked." Cole thought about Vivian's hand in his, about the way she'd fought against sedation because she'd promised to keep her eyes open, about the raw gratitude in her face when she'd woken up alive. "She's someone I helped," he said finally. "Someone who needed me to be stronger than her fear, that's all." Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. "Sarah would be proud. You know that, yes?" Cole's throat tightened. "Emma said the same thing this morning." "Smart girl, like her father." Mrs. Chen patted his arm. "Go. Help your friend. We'll be fine here." The drive to St. Catharines felt different in daylight. Less urgent, less desperate. Just a man driving through the city to pick up someone who needed a ride home. Cole parked in the visitor lot this time, properly, legally, with payment and everything, and made his way to the surgical recovery floor. The nurses recognized him immediately. "Mr. Maddox," the older nurse from last night greeted him. "Miss Hale's been asking about you all morning. She's in room 412. Room 412 was at the end of a quiet corridor, door half open, afternoon sunlight streaming through the window. Cole knocked gently. "Come in," Vivian called. She was sitting up in bed looking infinitely better than she had last night. Someone had brought her real clothes, designer casual wear that probably cost more than Cole's monthly rent, and her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. The pallor was gone, replaced by something approaching normal color. She looked like herself again, whoever that was. But when she saw Cole, her composure cracked just slightly. Relief and something deeper flickered across her face. "You came," she said. "Said I would." Cole stepped into the room, suddenly aware of how out of place he looked in this space. Even the hospital room felt expensive somehow, with Vivian in it. "How are you feeling?" "Like someone removed an organ from my body 12 hours ago." Vivian's smile was wry. "But alive." "Definitely, surprisingly alive." "Glad to hear it." Cole moved closer, noting the IV had been removed, the monitors mostly disconnected. "They're really releasing you already?" "Apparently I'm recovering faster than expected. Doctor says I'm young and healthy, and my appendix wasn't as bad as they initially thought." Vivian glanced toward the window. "Also, my insurance company is being difficult about extended stays for routine procedures. Claire is handling it, but the easiest solution is just to go home and recover there." "You have someone to help you? You're not supposed to be alone for the first few days." "Claire will stay with me. She's terrifyingly competent." Vivian's expression shifted, became more serious. "Cole, I need to say something. Last night, when you stayed with me, when you held my hand and made me believe I could survive this, that was the first time in 23 years that anyone saw through the armor I wear. The first time someone cared about me as a person, not as Vivian Hale the millionaire or Vivian Hale the business mogul." Cole shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what anyone should do." "But not what anyone would do. There's a difference." Vivian leaned forward slightly, wincing at the movement. "I want to repay you. Not with money. I know you'll refuse that. But with something that matters. Claire mentioned you run an auto repair business?" "I'm a freelance mechanic. I fix cars wherever they break down. It's not exactly a business." "But you want it to be, don't you?" Cole froze. How did she know that? He'd never told anyone except Sarah about his dream of opening a real garage, a place where people could bring their cars and trust they'd get honest work at fair prices. A place with Emma's drawings on the walls and maybe, someday, a legacy she could inherit if she wanted it. "Emma," Vivian said, reading his expression. "Last night, while I was half delirious on pain medication, I saw one of her drawings taped to your van ceiling. A building labeled Second Chance Garage. I remembered it this morning. She draws lots of things. Most of them don't mean anything. This one does. I can see it in your face." Vivian straightened carefully. "I own 32 commercial properties in this city. 3 of them are currently vacant, including a corner lot in your neighborhood with space for a full-service garage. Let me lease it to you, below market rate. We'll call it payment for saving my life." Cole stared at her. "That's insane. You don't owe me. A garage in exchange for my life seems like a bargain from my perspective." Vivian's eyes were bright, determined. "Please, let me do this. Let me prove that not every door you walk through leads to loss." The words hit Cole harder than they should have. He thought about Emma's drawing, about the dream he'd buried along with Sarah, about second chances and what they meant. "I can't afford a lease, even below market rate," he said honestly. "Then we'll work something out. A percentage of revenue instead of flat rent, or maintenance contracts for my company fleet. Or," Vivian smiled, "we'll figure it out together. That's what people do when they're building something that matters." Cole opened his mouth to argue, to find a logical reason why this was a terrible idea, why he couldn't possibly accept such a massive gesture from someone he'd known for less than 24 hours. But then he thought about Emma asking if he was a hero, about Vivian whispering, "Tell Cole I kept my eyes open," about how sometimes the scariest thing is accepting that maybe, just maybe, you deserve something good. "Okay," he heard himself say, let's figure it out." Vivian's smile transformed her face, softened the sharp edges that came from years of building walls around herself. Cole saw in that moment what she must have looked like before her mother died, before fear became her constant companion, before she learned to armor herself against the world. Good, she said quietly. Now, help me get out of this place before I change my mind about being brave. The discharge process took longer than either of them expected. Nurses came with instructions and prescriptions and warnings about what to watch for. A physical therapist demonstrated proper movement techniques. Claire appeared with paperwork that needed signing and a wheelchair that Vivian initially refused. Hospital policy, the nurse said firmly. Everyone leaves in a wheelchair, even stubborn millionaires. Vivian shot Cole a look that said she wanted to argue, but knew she'd lose. Fine, but only to the door. Cole pushed the wheelchair while Claire walked ahead with Vivian's belongings. A small overnight bag and the ruined evening gown folded into a hospital plastic bag. They made their way through corridors that felt less threatening in daylight, past the ER where this had all started, toward the main entrance with its automatic doors. Vivian's breathing quickened as they approached. Her hands gripped the wheelchair arms, knuckles white. You okay? Cole asked quietly, slowing their pace. Just remembering last night, how terrified I was. Vivian didn't look at the doors, kept her eyes fixed straight ahead. It's strange. I walked through them once and they didn't kill me, but my brain still thinks they might. That's trauma, Cole said. It doesn't care about logic. It just remembers the fear. Speaking from experience? Yeah. Cole stopped the wheelchair just before the threshold, gave Vivian a moment. After Sarah died, I couldn't go into our bedroom for 3 months. Slept on the couch every night because I kept seeing her there, cold and still. Emma would ask why Daddy didn't sleep in his bed anymore, and I'd make up excuses. Finally, Mrs. Chen told me that avoiding it just gave the trauma more power. What did you do? Went in, sat on the bed, let myself fall apart for about an hour. Cole's voice was steady, matter of fact. Then I changed the sheets, moved the furniture around, put up some of Emma's drawings, made it different enough that my brain could separate the before from the after. Vivian absorbed this, her breathing evening out slightly. You're saying I need to make hospitals feel different. I'm saying you need to give yourself new memories, better ones. So when you think hospital, you don't just remember losing your mother. You remember surviving your appendix. You remember being brave. Cole moved around to face her. Ready? She nodded. The doors slid open. Vivian flinched but didn't close her eyes. Claire held the outer door as Cole pushed the wheelchair through, and then they were outside, standing in the afternoon sunshine with the hospital at their backs. Vivian let out a long, shaky breath. I did it again. You did it again, Cole confirmed, and you'll keep doing it until it gets easier. Claire cleared her throat delicately. Miss Hale, I have the car waiting, but if you'd prefer Mr. Maddox to drive you, Cole's taking me home, Vivian said. You can follow in the car with my things. We'll meet you there. Claire's expression suggested this was highly irregular, but she was too professional to argue. Of course. I'll text you the gate code. Cole helped Vivian out of the wheelchair. She was steadier on her feet than he expected, though she still moved carefully, one hand pressed against her abdomen. His van was parked 3 rows over, looking particularly battered next to the luxury sedans and SUVs in the visitor lot. Your chariot, Cole said dryly. Best ride I've ever taken. Vivian let him help her into the passenger seat, then looked around at Emma's artwork with fresh eyes. Your daughter has talent. This one with the dragon looks almost professional. She traced it from a library book. But don't tell her I told you. She thinks she drew it freehand. The drive to Vivian's penthouse took them through parts of the city Cole usually avoided, the neighborhoods where the buildings got taller and the doormen more numerous. Vivian directed him with quiet efficiency, pointing out turns and landmarks, occasionally wincing when they hit a pothole. Tell me about your wife, she said suddenly, about halfway there. If that's not too painful. Cole gripped the steering wheel tighter. What do you want to know? How you met? What she was like, why you loved her. Vivian shifted carefully in her seat to look at him. You've seen me at my most vulnerable. Let me see some of yours. It was a fair request. Cole changed lanes, gathering his thoughts. We met at a community college automotive class. I was 18, trying to figure out what to do with my life after my dad died. Sarah was taking the class despite her ex-boyfriend who'd told her, Girls couldn't understand engines. Cole smiled at the memory. She was terrible at it, absolutely hopeless. But she was determined, and she asked the best questions, and she had this laugh that made everyone around her laugh too. You fell for her in a car repair class. I fell for her because she was real. No pretense, no games. She saw people, really saw them, and she cared about things that mattered. After her mom died, she became a hospice volunteer, spent her weekends sitting with dying strangers because she said everyone deserved to have someone hold their hand at the end. Cole's voice roughened. She was better than me in every way that counted. Except she let her fear kill her. The blunt words should have hurt. Instead, they felt like permission to acknowledge the truth. Yeah, Cole said quietly. Except for that. They drove in silence for a while. The buildings grew taller, more expensive. Doormen in uniforms appeared on corners. This was Vivian's world, one Cole had only ever glimpsed through car windows while making deliveries or emergency repair calls. Turn here, Vivian said, directing him toward a gleaming high-rise with a circular driveway. The parking garage is on the right. The building was exactly what Cole expected, all glass and steel and understated wealth. The security guard at the parking entrance recognized Vivian immediately, his eyes widening with concern when he saw her moving carefully. Ms. Hale, we heard about your surgery. Are you all right? I'm fine, Marcus. This is Cole Maddox. He'll be helping me upstairs. Can you validate his parking? Marcus handed Cole a ticket, his expression skeptical but professional. Cole parked in a visitor spot next to Claire's sedan. She'd beaten them here somehow, and came around to help Vivian out of the van. The elevator ride to the penthouse was silent, tension building with each floor they climbed. Vivian stood very straight, clearly in pain but refusing to show it. Claire had already gone up ahead with the bags. You don't have to stay, Vivian said as the numbers ticked higher. I know you have Emma waiting. Claire can handle things from here. Emma's fine with Mrs. Chen, and I want to make sure you're settled before I go. Cole watched the floor numbers climb. 30, 40. Besides, we need to talk about this garage situation. Make sure it's actually viable and not just pain medication talking. It wasn't pain medication. I meant every word. The elevator opened directly into Vivian's penthouse. Cole stepped out and stopped, taking in the space with something between awe and discomfort. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything was pristine, perfect, utterly lacking in the warm chaos that defined actual human living. This is where you live? He asked. This is where I sleep and work. Vivian moved slowly into the space, heading toward an enormous couch. Living is something different. Claire appeared from a hallway, already in full assistant mode. I've set up the guest room for you, Ms. Hale. The doctor said you shouldn't be climbing stairs for a few days, and your bedroom is on the upper level. Thank you, Claire. Vivian sank onto the couch with visible relief. Can you give us a few minutes? Cole and I need to discuss some business. Claire's eyebrows rose fractionally, but she nodded. I'll be in the office if you need anything. Once they were alone, Vivian gestured for Cole to sit. He chose a chair that looked less likely to collapse under his work-worn jeans, feeling acutely aware of how out of place he was in this environment. You're uncomfortable, Vivian observed. I fix cars for a living. This place probably costs more than I'll make in my lifetime. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable. Good, because I need you to understand something. Vivian leaned forward slightly, her expression intense despite the exhaustion pulling at her features. For 23 years, I've built walls around myself. I've been successful, respected, feared even, but I've also been completely alone. No friends, no real relationships, nothing but work, and the terror of ending up in a hospital bed like my mother. She paused, swallowing hard. Last night, when you carried me through those doors, you didn't just save my life. You showed me what I've been missing. Connection. Trust. Someone who cared more about keeping me alive than about my bank account or my reputation. Vivian's eyes were bright. So this garage isn't charity, Cole. It's selfish. It's me trying to keep you in my life because I've never met anyone like you, and I don't want to go back to being alone. The raw honesty in her words hit Cole like a physical blow. He'd expected gratitude, maybe even misplaced obligation. He hadn't expected this. The vulnerability of someone admitting they needed human connection more than they needed another business deal. "I'm not good company," he said carefully. "I work 16-hour days. I fall asleep during movies. I can barely afford to take Emma to the zoo. Your world and mine don't exactly overlap." "Then we'll build a new world, one where both of us fit." Vivian reached for a folder on the coffee table. Claire must have left it, and opened it to reveal property listings. "Look, this is the corner lot I mentioned. 2,000 square feet, zoned for commercial vehicle repair, 2 garage bays with room to expand. Currently vacant because the last tenant went bankrupt." Cole looked at the photos despite himself. The location was perfect, right in his neighborhood, on a corner with good visibility and easy access. The building needed work, but the bones were solid. He could see it clearly in his mind's eye. Emma's drawings on the office walls, a proper lift system, tools organized on pegboards instead of scattered in the back of his van. "What's the catch?" he asked. "No catch. You lease it from me for $500 a month." "500?" Cole looked up sharply. "That's not below market rate. That's insulting. A space like this goes for at least $3,000. $500 plus 15% of gross revenue after expenses," Vivian continued calmly, "and a maintenance contract for all Hale Properties company vehicles. I have a fleet of 17, vans, trucks, company cars. You keep them running, you get steady work. Once the business is profitable enough, we renegotiate the lease terms." Cole stared at her. It was a good deal. Too good, really. The kind of deal that could actually work, that could transform his freelance scrambling into a real business. But accepting it meant accepting everything that came with it. The connection to Vivian, the obligation, the risk of building something that could fail. "Why?" he asked finally. "And don't give me that line about being selfish. Why does this matter so much to you?" Vivian closed the folder, her hands resting on top of it. "Because my mother worked herself to death trying to provide for me. She never had help, never had someone believe in her enough to take a risk. And when she died, I inherited money and used it to build an empire, but I never used it to help someone the way people should be helped, with trust and opportunity and the belief that they can build something meaningful." She met his eyes. "You saved my life, Cole. Let me help save yours." The words hung in the air between them. Cole thought about Emma's drawing, about Second Chance Garage, about the dreams he'd buried along with Sarah. He thought about how Vivian had fought against sedation because she'd promised to keep her eyes open, how sometimes the scariest thing was accepting that you deserved a chance. "If I do this," he said slowly, "it's not because you saved me. It's because I want to build something Emma can be proud of. Something real." "Then we're in agreement," Vivian smiled. "Claire will draw up the paperwork. You can review it with a lawyer if you want. I insist on it, actually. This needs to be legitimate and fair for both of us." "I don't have a lawyer." "Then I'll pay for one. A good one. Independent of my company. Someone who'll make sure you're protected." Vivian's expression turned wry. "I may be desperate for human connection, but I'm not stupid enough to enter a business relationship without proper legal framework." Despite everything, Cole laughed. Okay, let's do this. Let's build a garage." They shook hands, a strange, formal gesture that felt both too businesslike and exactly right. Vivian's grip was firm despite her recent surgery, and Cole could feel the determination in it, the same determination that had pushed her through those hospital doors. Claire reappeared with impeccable timing, carrying a tray with tea and what looked like homemade soup. "You need to eat, Ms. Hale. Doctor's orders." "Claire thinks she's my mother," Vivian said to Cole, but there was affection in her voice. "Someone has to keep you alive," Claire replied tartly. She set the tray down and fixed Cole with a measuring look. "Mr. Maddox, will you be staying for dinner? I can prepare something." Cole glanced at his phone. Almost 5 p.m. He'd been gone for hours. "I should get back to Emma, but thank you." "Bring her next time," Vivian said. "I'd like to meet the artist responsible for the dragon drawings." "She'd love that. Fair warning, though, she'll probably ask you 1,000 questions and insist on showing you her entire sticker collection." "Perfect. I happen to have some vintage stickers from my childhood. I've been saving them for someone who'd appreciate them properly." The image of Emma and Vivian sitting together, trading stickers and stories, was so unexpected that Cole felt something shift in his chest. His worlds were colliding in ways he'd never imagined, and instead of disaster, It felt like possibility. He stood, suddenly awkward now that the business was settled. I'll call you about the garage details, and I'll check in tomorrow to make sure you're recovering okay. I'd like that. Vivian struggled to stand, and Cole moved automatically to help her. She steadied herself against his arm, looking up at him with those startling green eyes. Thank you. For everything. For not letting me die in that alley, for staying with me through surgery, for believing I could face my fear, for seeing me as a person instead of a bank account. You made it easy, Cole said honestly. You're brave and stubborn, and you count all the way to 3 when most people would have given up at 7. Vivian's laugh was soft but genuine. That might be the strangest compliment I've ever received. I'm a mechanic, not a poet. Good. I've met enough poets. They're mostly terrible. She squeezed his arm gently. Drive safe. Text me when you get home so I know you made it. Cole raised an eyebrow. You worried about me? Someone has to be. Fair's fair. The drive home felt surreal. Cole kept replaying the conversation, the handshake, the moment Vivian had admitted she was lonely. He'd gone into that alley expecting nothing more than a night's work, and somehow he'd come out with a business opportunity and something that felt dangerously close to friendship. Emma was waiting on Mrs. Chen's couch when he arrived, surrounded by construction paper and markers, creating what appeared to be a very elaborate dragon. Daddy! She launched herself at him, nearly knocking him over. You were gone forever. Mrs. Chen let me use all her good markers. I see that. What are you making? A thank you card for the lady you helped. Mrs. Chen said that's what you do when someone is nice to you. Emma held up her creation proudly. It featured a dragon in various shades of green, breathing what might have been fire or possibly flowers. It was hard to tell. Is she okay? The lady? She's okay. Her name is Vivian, and she's going to be fine because she was very brave. Good. Can we give her the card? Cole looked at Mrs. Chen, who shrugged with a smile. I may have mentioned you might see her again. We can definitely give her the card, Cole told Emma. In fact, Vivian wants to meet you. She said she has stickers to trade. Emma's eyes went wide. Really? What kind of stickers? Vintage ones, apparently, which means old and probably very cool. We have to go back. When can we go? Emma was practically vibrating with excitement. Tomorrow? Can we go tomorrow? Let's see how Vivian is feeling first. She just had surgery, so she needs to rest. Cole ruffled Emma's hair. But soon. I promise. They said goodnight to Mrs. Chen and headed upstairs. Cole made dinner while Emma colored more cards, apparently one wasn't enough, and chattered about her day. The normalcy of it grounded him, reminded him that despite everything that had changed in the last 24 hours, he was still just a dad making spaghetti and listening to his daughter's stories about playground politics. After Emma went to bed, Cole sat on the couch with his phone, staring at Vivian's contact information. He should text her, like she'd asked. Just a quick message to let her know he'd made it home safely. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. What did you say to someone who'd just offered to change your entire life? Someone who'd been vulnerable enough to admit they needed you as much as you'd needed to save them? Finally, he typed, Home safe. Emma made you a card. Features a dragon. We'll deliver when you're up for visitors. The response came within minutes. Tell Emma I can't wait. And Cole, thank you for today. For treating me like a person instead of a patient. It meant more than you know. Cole stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed, That's what people do when they care. Sleep well. Call if you need anything. He hit send before he could overthink it, then set his phone down and stared at his living room. The apartment was small, cluttered, filled with Emma's artwork and his tools, and the accumulated debris of 5 years of single parenthood. It was nothing like Vivian's pristine penthouse, but it was real. It was lived in. It was home. And somehow, impossibly, he was going to build something more. A garage. A business. Maybe even a friendship with a millionaire who'd rather die in an alley than walk through hospital doors. The universe had a strange sense of humor. Cole pulled out his laptop, an ancient thing that took 3 minutes to boot up, and started researching. Business licenses, insurance requirements, equipment costs, what it actually took to transform a dream drawn by a 7-year-old into something real. The numbers were daunting. Even with Vivian's generous lease terms, He'd need capital for equipment, for licensing, for 100 things he hadn't considered. But for the first time in 5 years, he felt something stronger than fear. Hope, purpose, the sense that maybe, just maybe, Sarah's death hadn't been the end of everything. Maybe it had been the beginning of learning how to fight for life instead of surrendering to fear. His phone buzzed. Another message from Vivian. Claire just lectured me for texting instead of resting. I told her it's impossible to rest when your entire perspective on life just shifted. She's unmoved. Good night, Cole. I'm glad you exist. Cole smiled despite himself. Glad you exist too. Now listen to Claire and get some sleep. Bossy, learn from the best. He could almost hear her laugh through the screen. Then, fair point, sleep well. Cole closed his laptop and headed to his room, the one he'd finally been able to sleep in again after rearranging everything, after letting himself grieve and then letting himself move forward. Sarah's photo still sat on the nightstand, her smile forever frozen at 37, forever the woman who'd been too afraid to save herself. I did it, he told her photo quietly. I saved someone, and maybe I'm finally learning to save myself too. The photo didn't answer, but Cole felt lighter somehow. Like a weight he'd been carrying for 5 years had finally shifted to something manageable. He thought about Vivian counting backward to 3, about Emma's dragon breathing fire at monsters, about second chances and what they meant when you were brave enough to take them. Then he turned off the light and let himself sleep, dreamless and deep, with hope as his companion instead of guilt. The next morning brought rain, not the torrential downpour from Friday night, but a steady drizzle that made the city look washed clean. Cole was making coffee when his phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. This is Cole. Mr. Maddox, this is Dr. Morrison from St. Catherine's. I hope I'm not calling too early. Cole's heart jumped. Is Vivian okay? Did something happen? Ms. Hale is fine. Actually, that's why I'm calling. She's recovering remarkably well, better than I've seen in my 20 years of practice. The human body responds strongly to positive mental state, and whatever you said to her has clearly had an impact. Dr. Morrison paused. But there's something else. Ms. Hale mentioned you lost your wife to a heart attack 5 years ago. A Sarah Maddox? Cole's hand tightened on his phone. Yes. Why? I pulled her records. I hope that's not overstepping, but when Ms. Hale mentioned the circumstances, your wife's fear of hospitals, the delayed treatment, I wanted to understand what happened. Dr. Morrison's voice was gentle. Mr. Maddox, there's something you should know. Your wife's heart attack was caused by a congenital defect, a time bomb that could have gone off at any moment. Even if you'd called 911 immediately, her survival chances were less than 20%. Cole stopped breathing. What? The EMT who told you 15 minutes would have saved her was wrong. He didn't have the full picture. Your wife's condition was catastrophic. The delay in calling for help didn't kill her. The defect did. Dr. Morrison paused, letting that sink in. I'm telling you this because Ms. Hale said you've been carrying that guilt for 5 years, and you shouldn't be. You couldn't have saved her, Cole. No one could have. The phone felt heavy in Cole's hand. 5 years. 5 years of believing he'd let Sarah die, of replaying that night over and over, of wondering if 15 minutes would have made the difference between life and death. And it had all been a lie. Not the EMT's fault, he hadn't known, but a lie nonetheless. Why are you telling me this? Cole's voice was rough. Because guilt is a monster too, and you've been fighting it alone for long enough. Dr. Morrison's tone was kind. Ms. Hale wanted you to know. She asked me to pull the records, to find the truth. She said you deserved to stop blaming yourself. Cole couldn't speak, couldn't think. The weight he'd carried for 5 years, the crushing, suffocating weight of having failed Sarah, suddenly lifted, and the absence of it left him dizzy. Mr. Maddox, are you all right? I don't know, Cole said honestly. I need to go. Of course. But Cole, what you did for Ms. Hale, getting her to that hospital, staying with her, helping her face her fear, that saved a life. You did save someone. Remember that. Cole ended the call and stood in his kitchen, the coffee forgotten, the rain pattering against the windows, Emma still asleep in her room. The world looked different suddenly, lighter, like someone had adjusted the contrast and everything was clearer. Sarah's death wasn't his fault. He couldn't have saved her. But he had saved Vivian, and maybe, just maybe, that meant something. His phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. Doctor. Morrison called you, didn't he? I'm sorry if that was overstepping, but I needed you to know the truth. You saved my life, Cole. Please stop thinking you couldn't save hers. Cole stared at the message, at the rain outside, at his small kitchen with Emma's drawings covering the refrigerator. Then he texted back, "Thank you for caring enough to find out, for seeing the monster I was fighting. Monsters are smaller when you look at them together." Yeah, they are. Come visit today? Bring Emma? I promise not to be too exciting, doctor's orders. Cole smiled through the tears he didn't realize were falling. We'll be there. Emma stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes, trying on and discarding outfits like she was meeting royalty. Cole watched from the doorway, amused and touched by how seriously his daughter was taking this visit. The purple shirt with the unicorns, or the green one with the sparkles? Emma held up both options, her face scrunched in concentration. Either one is fine, Bug. Vivian's not going to care what you're wearing. But she's fancy, right? Mrs. Chen said she lives in a penthouse. That means she's important. Emma switched the shirts again, studying them with intense focus. I want to make a good impression. Cole knelt beside her, gently taking both shirts and setting them on the bed. You know what makes a good impression? Being yourself. Being kind. Being the Emma who draws dragons and collects stickers and asks a million questions. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Vivian already wants to meet you. You don't have to be anyone except who you are. Emma considered this, then nodded seriously. Okay, the purple one, because unicorns are basically fancy dragons. That's sound logic. 20 minutes later, they were in the van heading across town, Emma clutching her homemade card and chattering about what questions she would ask Vivian. Cole drove through the rain-wet streets, his mind still reeling from Dr. Morrison's call. The knowledge that he hadn't failed Sarah, that he couldn't have saved her no matter what he'd done, felt too big to process all at once. It kept hitting him in waves: relief, grief, confusion, something that might have been forgiveness but felt more like exhaustion. Daddy, you're quiet, Emma observed. Are you nervous about seeing Vivian? A little. Are you? Nope. She likes dragons and she saves stickers for someone special. That means she's probably nice. Emma swung her legs, her sneakers lighting up with each movement. Plus, you saved her life. That makes you basically best friends already. I don't think it works quite like that. Sure it does. In all my books, when someone saves someone else, they become friends forever. It's like a rule. Cole smiled despite the complicated emotions churning in his chest. Then I guess we're following the rules. The doorman at Vivian's building, Marcus, the same one from yesterday, greeted them with a professional nod that softened when he saw Emma. Ms. Hale is expecting you. Penthouse level, elevator code is 4727. Emma's eyes widened as they stepped into the elevator. Daddy, this is fancier than the mall elevator. Yeah, it is. Do you think Vivian has a dragon? Probably not a real one. But maybe a statue? Or a really big picture? Emma was practically vibrating with excitement as the numbers climbed. Mrs. Chen says rich people have weird stuff in their houses. Like one time her cousin cleaned a house that had a room just for hats. A whole room. The elevator doors opened directly into Vivian's penthouse. Claire was waiting, her expression as composed as ever, though something in her eyes suggested she was curious about the little girl whose artwork had apparently made such an impression. Mr. Maddox, Emma, welcome. Ms. Hale is in the living room. Claire led them through the entryway, and Cole noticed Emma's wide-eyed stare at everything. The art on the walls, the massive windows, the pristine furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. Vivian was on the couch, looking better than she had yesterday, but still moving carefully. She wore comfortable clothes, yoga pants and a soft sweater, and her hair was pulled back simply. The Millionaire mogul armor was completely absent, replaced by something more human. When she saw Emma, her face lit up with genuine warmth. You must be Emma. I've heard so much about you. Vivian shifted slightly, wincing. Excuse me for not standing up. I'm still recovering from surgery. Emma approached cautiously, suddenly shy now that the moment had arrived. But then she held out her card with both hands, like it was something precious. I made this for you, to say thank you for letting my daddy help you. Vivian took the card carefully, studying Emma's dragon with the kind of serious attention that made Emma straighten with pride. This is beautiful. Is this a fire-breathing dragon or a flower-breathing dragon? Both. Emma's shyness evaporated. She can breathe fire when she's protecting people and flowers when she's happy. Her name is Sparkle. Sparkle is an excellent name for a dragon. Vivian looked up at Cole, something unreadable passing between them. Your daughter is as talented as you said. She's been working on dragon variations all week. Cole stayed standing, uncertain where he fit in this pristine space. We can't stay long. I know you're supposed to be resting. Nonsense. Claire made tea and cookies specifically for visitors. Vivian gestured to the coffee table, where indeed a tea service and a plate of cookies had appeared. Besides, I promised Emma we'd trade stickers. I take my promises very seriously. Emma gasped. The vintage stickers? The very ones. Claire, could you bring the box from my office? Claire disappeared and returned moments later with a wooden box that looked like it had been well loved. Vivian opened it to reveal sheets of stickers that made Emma's eyes go huge. Holographic unicorns, puffy kittens, scratch and sniff flowers, all from an era before digital printing had made everything ordinary. These were mine when I was your age, Vivian said quietly. My mother bought them for me, one sheet at a time, whenever she had a little extra money. I've kept them all these years, but I think they'd be happier with someone who'd actually use them. Emma looked at Cole, silently asking permission for something this valuable. He nodded, his throat tight. This wasn't just stickers. This was Vivian sharing a piece of her mother, of the life before hospitals and fear. Can I really have them? Emma whispered. Only if you promise to put them somewhere special, and maybe save a few to trade back to me someday, when you're all grown up. Vivian smiled, but there was sadness in it too. Deals should always go both ways. I promise. Emma took the box like it was made of glass. Thank you so much. Cole watched his daughter and this woman who'd been a stranger 3 days ago, sitting together on a couch, worth more than his car, trading stickers and stories about dragons and mothers. Something in his chest cracked open. Not painfully, but like a door he'd kept locked was finally swinging free. Emma, why don't you and Claire go look at those stickers in the kitchen? Vivian suggested gently. The light is better there for seeing all the details. Claire understood immediately. Come on, Emma. I'll show you my favorite, the Sparkly Dolphin series. Once they were alone, Vivian's expression became more serious. Dr. Morrison called you. Yeah. Cole sat down in the chair across from her, suddenly exhausted. He told me about Sarah's heart condition, that I couldn't have saved her. I'm sorry if that was overstepping, but I needed you to know. Vivian leaned forward carefully. When you told me about your wife, about the guilt you carried, I heard something I recognized, the sound of someone torturing themselves for something beyond their control. I know that sound because I've been making it for 23 years. Your mother's death wasn't your fault either. I know that now. Intellectually, I've always known it, but knowing something and believing it are different things. Vivian's eyes were bright. You saved my life, Cole. And in doing that, you showed me what I'd been missing. Not just medical care, but connection, trust, someone who cared enough to fight for me when I couldn't fight for myself. So I wanted to do the same for you, to fight for you against the monster you've been carrying. Cole's vision blurred. He pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to hold himself together. 5 years. I've spent 5 years believing I killed her through inaction. And now you can stop. Vivian's voice was gentle but firm. You can grieve her without guilt. You can remember her without the weight of thinking you failed. I don't know how to do that. The guilt's been there so long, I don't know who I am without it. Then we'll figure it out together, the same way we're figuring out this garage situation. Vivian reached across the space between them, offering her hand. You don't have to carry monsters alone, Cole. That's what people do when they care about each other. Cole took her hand, feeling the warmth of it, the realness. This woman who'd been terrified enough to die rather than face a hospital was now holding his hand while he fell apart in her living room. The symmetry of it was almost funny. "Thank you," he managed, "for caring enough to find out, for seeing what I needed even when I didn't. That's what friends do. Is that what we are? Friends?" Vivian squeezed his hand. "I think we're people who saved each other. If that's friendship, then yes. If it's something else, we'll figure that out too." From the kitchen came Emma's delighted squeal and Claire's patient explanation of proper sticker preservation techniques. Normal sounds in an abnormal situation, or maybe normal sounds that were finally making sense of abnormal circumstances. Cole pulled himself together, wiping his eyes with his free hand. "Emma's going to want to stay here forever now. You've basically given her treasure." "Good. She can visit whenever she wants. Bring her chaos into this sterile museum I call home." Vivian glanced around her pristine penthouse with something like distaste. "It's too quiet here. Too perfect. Too much like I'm still afraid of living." "You could mess it up a bit. Put some of Emma's drawings on your walls." "I'd like that, actually. This place needs more dragons." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, hands still linked across the space between couch and chair. Cole thought about how strange life was. How 3 days ago he'd been just another struggling mechanic, and now he was sitting in a penthouse holding hands with a millionaire while while his daughter, and this woman who mattered, bonded over vintage stickers. "Tell me about the garage," Vivian said eventually. "Have you thought about what you'd need? Equipment, staff, timeline?" "I've been researching. The numbers are scary." Cole released her hand reluctantly, pulling out his phone to show her the notes he'd been making. "Even with your lease terms, I'd need about $50,000 in startup capital. Lifts, diagnostic equipment, tools, insurance, licensing, and that's before paying myself anything." "What if I fronted you the capital? A business loan, proper interest rate, everything legal and documented?" Cole shook his head. "You're already giving me a sweetheart lease deal. I can't take more from you." "It's not charity, it's investment. I believe this garage will succeed. You're skilled, honest, and you have a reputation for quality work. I had Claire do some research." Vivian's expression turned businesslike, the mogul emerging despite the yoga pants. "Your clients trust you. You just need infrastructure to scale. That's a sound investment, not a handout. Or it's you trying to help me because you feel obligated. It's both. I can be grateful and see a good opportunity simultaneously." Vivian's smile was wry. "Welcome to how wealthy people think. We don't separate emotion from business. We just channel emotion into good business decisions." Cole wanted to argue, but the logic was sound. And more than that, he could see in Vivian's face that this mattered to her. Not just the business aspect, but the act of helping, of using her resources to build something meaningful with someone she cared about. "Okay," he said finally. "A loan. Proper interest, proper documentation, everything above board. And if the business fails, I pay you back even if it takes me the rest of my life." "Deal. Though it won't fail. I have a sense about these things." Vivian pulled out her own phone, typing rapidly. "I'm emailing my attorney now. He'll draw up both the lease and the loan agreement. We can have everything ready by next week." "That fast?" "I'm very good at making things happen when I want them to happen. It's how I built an empire." She looked up from her phone. "Besides, the property is sitting vacant. Better to have you in there building something than letting it collect dust and depreciate." Emma and Claire returned from the kitchen, Emma clutching the sticker box like it was the crown jewels, and talking a mile a minute about which ones she'd use first and which ones she'd save. Claire looked mildly overwhelmed but also charmed, which Cole suspected was not a common state for Vivian's ultra-competent assistant. "Daddy, did you see? There's a whole sheet of dragons, actual dragons, not like the new ones from the store." Emma was practically glowing, and Vivian says I can come back and show her what I do with them. "That's very generous of Vivian." Cole stood, recognizing the signs of impending Emma overload. "We should probably head out now. Let Vivian rest." "But we just got here, and Vivian just had surgery 3 days ago. She needs to recover." Cole gave his daughter a meaningful look. "We can come back another time." "Promise?" "I promise." Vivian answered before Cole could. In fact, next time you come, maybe you can help me pick out some art for these walls. Claire says they're too boring, and I think a 7-year-old's opinion on what makes good art is probably more valuable than an interior designer's. Emma's face lit up. Really? I can help decorate? Really? I'm thinking we need at least 3 dragons. Maybe more. Cole watched this exchange with something between gratitude and bewilderment. Vivian was building bridges, not just with him, but with Emma, creating reasons to stay connected, weaving their lives together in ways that felt both natural and terrifying. Claire walked them to the elevator, her professional composure firmly back in place. Mr. Maddox, Ms. Hale will send you the property details and attorney contact information by tomorrow. If you have any questions, you can reach me directly. She handed him a business card. And Emma, take good care of those stickers. They're very special to Ms. Hale. I will, I promise. Emma hugged the box tighter. Thank you for showing me your favorite ones. In the elevator, Emma was quiet for the first 3 floors. Then, Daddy, is Vivian lonely? The question caught Cole off guard. What makes you ask that? Her house is really pretty, but it doesn't look like anyone lives there, like a hotel or something. Emma looked up at him with those too perceptive eyes that reminded him so much of Sarah. And she was really happy when we came, like really, really happy. The way you get when I come home from school. Cole's heart squeezed. Yeah, Bug. I think maybe she has been lonely, for a long time. Then we should visit her lots, so she doesn't have to be lonely anymore. Emma said it like it was the simplest solution in the world. That's what friends do, right? Yeah, that's exactly what friends do. The drive home took them past the property Vivian wanted to lease to him. Cole slowed down, looking at it with new eyes. The building was older but solid, with good bones and plenty of potential. He could see it clearly now, the sign reading Second Chance Garage, the bays with their lifts, maybe eventually expanding to hire someone, teaching Emma about engines if she wanted to learn. A future. An actual future that wasn't just survival, but building something meaningful. Is that it? Emma pressed her face against the window. Is that where your garage is going to be? Maybe, if everything works out. It will, I can tell. Emma settled back in her seat, hugging the sticker box. This is a good day, Daddy. Vivian is nice, and we got stickers, and you're going to have a real garage instead of just the van. Everything's getting better. Cole wanted to agree immediately, but years of caution held him back. Things had seemed to be getting better before Sarah died. Hope was dangerous when life had taught you it could be ripped away without warning. But then he thought about Vivian fighting sedation to make it to 3, about Emma drawing dragons that breathed both fire and flowers, about Dr. Morrison's call and the weight that had lifted from his shoulders after 5 years of crushing guilt. Yeah, he said quietly. I think maybe it is. The next week passed in a blur of paperwork and possibilities. The attorney Vivian hired, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chen, who happened to be Mrs. Chen's niece, which was either coincidence or Vivian being extremely thorough, reviewed every document with ruthless efficiency. She found 3 clauses to modify, negotiated better loan terms than Cole expected, and made sure everything protected both parties fairly. This is legitimate, Patricia told Cole in her office, surrounded by law books and what appeared to be a half-finished crossword puzzle. No hidden catches, no unfair terms. Vivian Hale is offering you an extremely generous deal, but it's structured properly. If you want my professional opinion, take it. And your unprofessional opinion? Patricia leaned back in her chair, studying him. My aunt says you're a good man who's had a rough few years. Says you deserve something good to happen. And Vivian Hale doesn't strike me as someone who makes frivolous investments. If she believes in you, there's probably a good reason. She paused. Also, my aunt says your daughter draws the best dragon she's ever seen, and that's apparently relevant somehow. Cole laughed despite himself. Everything comes back to Emma's dragons. As it should. Dragons are important. He signed the papers that Friday afternoon, his hand only shaking slightly as he committed to the biggest risk of his life. Vivian signed remotely, still recovering, still taking it slow despite what her doctors called a miraculous healing rate. Claire delivered the executed documents personally, along with keys to the property and an envelope containing what turned out to be the first month's equipment rental fees that Vivian had prepaid. "She said to tell you this isn't charity," Claire explained. "It's standard practice for her commercial investments. Getting tenants operational quickly benefits everyone." Cole held the keys in his hand, feeling their weight. These small pieces of metal represented everything he'd been afraid to hope for since Sarah died. A chance to build something lasting. A way to provide for Emma that wasn't just scraping by. A future that looked like more than survival. "Tell Vivian thank you," he said, "and tell her I'll make this work. I won't let her investment be wasted." She knows. She wouldn't have done it otherwise. Claire's professional mask slipped slightly, revealing something almost like warmth. "Ms. Hale has changed since meeting you, Mr. Maddox. She's more present, more engaged. She actually laughed at something in a meeting yesterday. Laughed. And everyone nearly fell out of their chairs. Whatever you two have given each other, it's made her more human. She did that herself. I just refused to let her die in an alley. You did more than that. You saw her, really saw her, not the persona or the wealth. That's rarer than you think." Claire handed him another envelope. "Also, this is for Emma. Miss Hale wanted her to have it." Inside was a gift certificate to an art supply store, along with a note in elegant handwriting. "For the artist who makes the best dragons. Your father is building something important. Will you design the logo?" V. Cole's throat tightened. Vivian wasn't just helping him. She was including Emma, making his daughter feel valuable and seen. She was building a connection that went beyond gratitude or obligation into something that felt like family. That evening, he took Emma to see the property. They stood outside in the fading light, looking at the empty garage bays and the office space that would need serious cleaning. "It's perfect," Emma declared. "We should paint the outside blue. With yellow trim? Like a dragon's colors." "Those aren't traditional garage colors." "Exactly. We should be different. Second chances are special, so the garage should be special too." Emma tugged his hand. "Can we go inside?" They explored together, Emma's voice echoing in the empty space as she planned where things should go. The desk should be by the window so he could see customers coming. The waiting area needed comfortable chairs and her drawings on the walls. Maybe a coffee maker so people felt welcome. "And here," Emma said, pointing to a blank wall near the entrance, "this is where my logo will go, big, so everyone can see it." "You're designing the logo?" "Vivian asked me to. Didn't Claire tell you?" Emma was already pulling out her phone. Mrs. Chen's old one that Cole had set up with limited data for emergencies. "She texted me, see?" Cole read the message. "Emma, I need your help with something important. Your dad's garage needs a logo, and I think you're the perfect person to design it. Will you take the job? We can discuss payment in stickers." Vivian. His daughter had been corresponding with a millionaire about business matters. The absurdity of it should have been overwhelming, but instead it felt right. Vivian understood that Emma needed to feel included, needed to be part of building this dream. "What are you going to design?" Cole asked. "A dragon, obviously, but a friendly one that fixes things instead of burning them." Emma was already sketching in the air with her finger, seeing something Cole couldn't yet visualize. "With tools in its claws, maybe, and big wings to show it's strong and can protect people." "That sounds perfect." They stayed until the light faded completely, sitting on the dusty floor of what would become Second Chance Garage, talking about possibilities and dreams and how everything was changing. Emma fell asleep on the drive home, exhausted from excitement, still clutching the keys Cole had let her hold. Mrs. Chen helped him carry Emma upstairs, and as he tucked his daughter into bed, she stirred just enough to mumble, "We're building something good, Daddy. Mommy would like it." Cole kissed her forehead, his heart so full it hurt. "Yeah, sweetheart, I think she would." Later, lying in his own bed, Cole texted Vivian. "Saw the property today with Emma. She's designing your logo. Apparently it will feature a dragon with tools. Hope that's what you had in mind." The response came quickly. "Perfect. I love dragons, and I love people who build things. How are you doing?" "Truly?" Cole considered the question. How was he? He was terrified of failing, excited about possibilities, grateful beyond words, and still processing Dr. Morrison's revelation about Sarah. He was mourning the 5 years he'd lost to guilt, while simultaneously feeling hopeful about the future for the first time since she'd died. Scared, hopeful, grateful. All of it at once, he typed. How about you? How's recovery? Slow but steady. Claire keeps threatening to sedate me if I don't rest properly. I've discovered I'm terrible at being still. That's because you spent 23 years running. Stillness probably feels like going backward. A longer pause this time, then, you see too much. It's unsettling and also exactly what I need. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for the garage, for Emma's logo job, for caring about both of us. Easy to care about people who matter, and you both matter, Cole, more than you probably realize. Cole stared at that message for a long time. The weight of it, the meaning underneath the simple words. Vivian was lonely and scared and brave, and she'd chosen them, him and Emma, as the people she wanted in her life as she figured out how to live again. He thought about typing something meaningful, something that captured the complexity of what they were building together. Instead, he sent dragons and garages and second chances. Who knew life could get this weird? Weird is better than empty. I'll take weird any day. Me too. Good night, Vivian. Take care of yourself. You too. And Cole, I'm proud of you. For taking this risk. For believing in second chances. Your daughter is right. You're building something good. Cole set his phone down and closed his eyes, feeling lighter than he had in 5 years. The guilt was gone. The future was uncertain but full of possibility. And somewhere across the city, a woman who'd been too afraid to live was learning to embrace life with the same fierce determination she'd shown, counting backward to 3. They were both building something, both healing, both learning that monsters got smaller when you looked at them with someone who understood. And that, more than the garage, more than the stickers, more than any of it, felt like salvation. 6 months later, Cole stood in the office of Second Chance Garage watching the morning sun stream through windows Emma had insisted they keep spotlessly clean because customers need to see we care about details. The waiting area had comfortable chairs salvaged from a thrift store and reupholstered by Mrs. Chen, walls covered in Emma's framed dragon drawings, and a coffee maker that stayed perpetually full. The space smelled like motor oil and fresh paint and possibility. Emma's logo, a friendly dragon holding a wrench in one claw and a tire in the other, wings spread protectively, hung above the entrance in blue and yellow exactly as she'd envisioned. Customers loved it. More than one person had come in just to compliment the design and ended up booking service. The phone rang. The actual business line Cole had installed 2 months ago when appointments started overlapping. He answered it the way Emma had coached him, professional but warm, like he actually cared about helping people instead of just taking their money. Second Chance Garage, this is Cole. Mr. Maddox, this is Rita from Hale Properties. We've got a fleet vehicle with transmission trouble. Can you fit us in today? Cole checked his schedule. Actual printed schedules now, color-coded by Emma, who'd appointed herself director of organization despite being 7. I can take it at 2 if you can get it here by then. Perfect. Sending the driver now with paperwork. 4 Hale Properties vehicles this week alone. Vivian had kept her promise about the maintenance contracts, and her company's steady business had kept Second Chance afloat during the rough first months when Cole was building his client base and learning to manage actual employees. He'd hired 2 mechanics, both older guys who'd been laid off when their previous shop closed, both grateful for the second chance the garage's name promised. The garage door chimed. Cole looked up expecting a customer, but it was Vivian moving carefully but confidently through the entrance. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. The Millionaire mogul uniform had been retired for everyday visits, though Claire reported she still wore it to board meetings and treated everyone with the same fierce determination she'd shown in recovery. "Shouldn't you be running an empire?" Cole asked, grinning. "Empire's running itself for an hour. I have more important things to do." Vivian held up a bakery box. "Brought donuts for your crew. Consider it a bribe to check out my car. The check engine light came on this morning." "You know you don't need bribes. You're my biggest client." "Maybe I just wanted an excuse to visit." Vivian set the box on the counter, her eyes scanning the space with obvious pride. "Every time I come here, it looks more real, more lived in." That's Emma's influence. She thinks empty spaces are sad, so she keeps bringing stuff. Cole gestured to the latest edition, a small bookshelf in the waiting area filled with children's books and car magazines. Last week, she decided customers with kids needed entertainment options. She's not wrong. Good business sense, that one. Vivian's expression softened. How is she? Currently at school, probably driving her teacher crazy with questions about how engines work. I made the mistake of teaching her about combustion last night, and now she wants to know why we can't make dragons real using fire science. Cole shook his head fondly. She's writing you a letter, by the way. Something about a business proposal involving dragon stickers. I'm supposed to deliver it. I'll await it eagerly. Her last proposal, redesigning my office, was actually brilliant. Claire's been implementing it gradually. Vivian moved toward the garage bays where Cole's employees were working. Mind if I watch? I find the mechanical process soothing, all those pieces fitting together logically. You find it soothing because you like solving puzzles. Your brain sees engines the same way it sees real estate deals. Cole grabbed his tablet to show her the diagnostics on her car. But yeah, come on. Your check engine light is probably the oxygen sensor. Common issue with your model year. They walked into the service bay together, and Cole noticed how naturally Vivian moved through his space now. 6 months ago, she'd been stiff and uncertain, clearly out of her element. Now she asked his mechanics questions, remembered their names, treated the garage like a place she belonged. It was the same transformation he'd seen in other areas of her life. The phone calls that used to be strictly business had evolved into genuine friendship. Vivian visited the apartment regularly, enduring Emma's enthusiastic tours of her sticker collection and Mrs. Chen's insistence that she stay for dinner. She'd started going to doctor's appointments without panic attacks. She'd even returned to St. Catherine's, walked through those doors voluntarily to donate funds for a new emergency wing. That moment had been 6 weeks ago, and Cole had gone with her. They'd stood together in the hospital lobby, Vivian's hand gripping his while she fought down the fear that still lived in her chest despite all the progress. I can't believe I'm doing this, she'd whispered. Yes, you can. You've done harder things. Cole had squeezed her hand. Remember? You counted all the way to 3. She'd laughed, shaky but real, and together they'd met with the hospital administrator. Vivian had committed $2 million to building the new wing, not in her mother's memory, though that was part of it, but as the Catherine Hale Emergency Wing, named for the woman who'd worked 3 jobs and died too young, but had loved fiercely enough to create a daughter who finally learned to be brave. The administrator had asked what inspired such generosity. Vivian had looked at Cole and said simply, "Someone taught me that hospitals don't always take people away. Sometimes they give them back." Now, watching her examine the engine diagnostic with genuine interest, Cole marveled at the change. This was who Vivian had been before fear consumed her, curious, engaged, present in her own life instead of running from it. You were right about the oxygen sensor, Vivian said, studying the readout. How long to fix? Hour, maybe less. You can wait in the office or come back later. I'll wait. I have calls to make anyway, and your coffee is better than mine. Vivian headed back toward the office, then paused. Cole, thank you. For fixing your car? That's literally my job. For all of it. For building this place. For letting me be part of it. For... She gestured vaguely, encompassing everything they'd built together. For saving my life, and then teaching me how to actually live it. Cole's throat tightened. You did the living part yourself. I just drove the van. You did more than drive. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. And then you let me fight for you back. That's... Vivian's voice caught. That's what made the difference. Not the hospital or the surgery, but knowing someone cared enough to push through my terror, to see me as worth saving. You were always worth saving. Maybe, but I didn't believe it until you refused to let me die. Vivian smiled, but her eyes were bright. Anyway, I'm getting emotional in your garage, which is unprofessional. I'll be in the office making very important phone calls and definitely not tearing up over car repairs. She disappeared before Cole could respond. He stood there for a moment, tools in hand, feeling the weight of how much had changed since that rainy night in the alley. He'd been so focused on his own guilt back then, so consumed by the belief that he'd failed Sarah, that he couldn't see past his own pain. Vivian had given him the truth about Sarah's death, that no amount of speed would have saved her, that the guilt he carried was built on false premises. But more than that, she'd given him purpose, a way to channel all that desperate need to save someone into actually building something meaningful. And he'd given her courage, the knowledge that fear didn't have to win, that she could walk through the doors that terrified her and survive, that she deserved to live fully instead of just avoiding death. They'd saved each other. That was the simple truth of it. Cole's phone buzzed with a text from Emma's school. "Mr. Maddox, Emma would like to bring her career day project to your garage after school to film the final segment. Is 3:30 convenient? Ms. Rodriguez." He texted back his confirmation, smiling at the mental image of Emma directing a documentary about family businesses and second chances with the seriousness of a seasoned filmmaker. She'd been working on it for weeks, interviewing him and Vivian and his employees, carefully scripting her narrative about how people helped each other build better futures. The project was due Monday. Emma had informed him gravely that it would definitely win Best in Class because it has actual dragons in the metaphors. At 3:30, Emma burst through the garage door with Ms. Rodriguez in tow, lugging a tablet and a hand-drawn poster board that proclaimed Second Chances, a documentary by Emma Maddox. "Daddy, we need you in front of the logo for the final shot." Emma was in full director mode, positioning Cole like a prop. "And Vivian, are you still here? I need you for the interview part." Vivian emerged from the office, trying and failing to hide her amusement. "I'm here. What do you need?" "I need you to tell the camera how second chances work. The real story, not the school-appropriate version." Emma adjusted her tablet's angle with intense focus. "Ms. Rodriguez said I could interview real people about real things as long as it's true and important." Ms. Rodriguez nodded. "Within reason, of course, but Emma's project is genuinely impressive. She's put a lot of thought into this." "Okay, I'm ready." Emma hit record, then looked at Vivian with those two serious eyes. "Ms. Hale, can you tell me what second chances mean to you?" Vivian glanced at Cole, something passing between them. Shared history, shared understanding, the knowledge of how much had changed since that night in the alley. Then she looked at Emma and spoke with complete honesty. "Second chances mean being brave enough to face the thing that scares you most. For me, that was hospitals. I spent 23 years avoiding them because of something terrible that happened when I was your age. I let fear make all my decisions." Vivian's voice was steady, clear. "But then I got very sick, and your father refused to let me die just because I was afraid. He made me choose, fear or life. And I chose life. That was my second chance." "And what did you do with it?" Emma prompted, every inch the serious interviewer. "I learned to be brave. I walked through the doors that terrified me. I made friends with people who saw me as a person, not just a business owner. I started living instead of just surviving." Vivian smiled. "And I helped your father build this garage, which is his second chance. We helped each other, really. That's what second chances are about. People seeing potential in each other and having the courage to act on it." Emma nodded solemnly, then turned the camera toward Cole. "Daddy, why did you help Vivian when she was scared?" Cole had known this question was coming, but actually answering it with Vivian and Ms. Rodriguez and his employees all watching was harder than expected. He thought about lying, about giving some sanitized version that didn't include Sarah or guilt or the desperate need for redemption. But Emma deserved the truth. They all did. Because 5 years ago, someone I loved very much was scared of hospitals too. And when she got sick, I listened to her fear instead of fighting for her life. I let her make a choice that ended up killing her. Cole's voice was rough but steady. When I found Vivian in that alley, I had a second chance. A chance to do what I should have done before, to fight for someone's life even when they're too scared to fight for themselves. So I did. And she lived. "And that helped you?" Emma asked quietly. "Yeah, Bug, it helped me. It didn't erase what happened before, but it showed me that I could learn from it, that I could be better." Cole looked at Vivian. "And then Vivian helped me back by giving me this garage, by believing I could build something good, by showing me that second chances go both ways." Emma stopped recording, her professional demeanor cracking to reveal the 7-year-old underneath. "That's really good, Daddy. I think I'm going to cry, but Ms. Rodriguez says that means it's powerful storytelling." "It absolutely does. Ms. Rodriguez was wiping her own eyes. Emma, that was beautiful. You're going to have a wonderful documentary. Can I film the logo one more time? I want to explain about the dragon. Emma was already repositioning her tablet. Because the dragon is protecting the garage, but it's also being protected. That's important. She filmed for another 10 minutes, narrating seriously about symbolism and hope, and how her daddy had taught her that monsters got smaller when you looked at them together. Then she declared the project complete and proceeded to give everyone, including Miss Rodriguez, a full tour of the garage with detailed explanations of what each piece of equipment did. By the time they left, Vivienne was laughing openly, her usual composure completely abandoned. That child is extraordinary. She's determined, I'll give her that. Cole started closing up the garage. It was nearly 6, and his employees had already gone home. Thanks for being part of her project. It meant a lot to her, to both of us. Are you kidding? I wouldn't have missed it. Vivienne helped him turn off lights, moving through the space with easy familiarity. She's right, about the dragon protecting and being protected. That's exactly what we did for each other. They ended up in the office, neither quite ready to leave yet. The evening sun slanted through the windows, painting everything gold. Cole made fresh coffee, the good stuff he kept for special occasions, and they sat in the waiting area chairs, comfortable in the silence. I have something to tell you, Vivienne said eventually. I've been putting it off because I wasn't sure how you'd react. Cole's stomach tightened. That sounds ominous. It's not bad. At least I don't think it is. Vivienne set down her coffee cup, nervous in a way she rarely was anymore. I've been seeing a therapist for the hospital phobia and the grief about my mother and all the ways fear shaped my life. Dr. Peterson, she specializes in trauma. That's good. That's really good, Vivienne. She's been helping me understand something. Vivienne looked at him directly. For 6 months, I've been telling myself that what we have is friendship. That you saved my life. I helped you build your garage, and now we're friends who care about each other. But it's more than that, isn't it? Cole's heart started hammering. What do you mean? I mean, I think about you constantly. I make excuses to visit the garage. I text you about things that don't matter just to have a reason to talk to you. I've reorganized my entire life around being near you and Emma. Vivienne's voice was steady, despite the vulnerability in her eyes. Dr. Peterson says I'm developing feelings that go beyond gratitude or friendship, and she asked me what I was going to do about it. Cole couldn't breathe. He'd felt it too. The way their connection had deepened beyond what made logical sense. The way his heart lifted every time Vivienne walked into the garage. The way Emma had started calling her Aunt Vivienne and asking when she'd be coming to dinner. He told himself it was just gratitude, just the bond that formed between people who'd saved each other's lives. But that was a lie. And he'd spent enough years lying to himself about important things. I think about you too, he said quietly. More than I should. More than I know what to do with. He paused, gathering courage. After Sarah died, I told myself I'd never risk that kind of connection again, that loving someone and losing them hurt too much. But you, his voice caught, you make me want to risk it anyway. I'm terrified, Vivienne admitted. I spent 23 years building walls, and you walked through all of them like they were made of paper. You see me, really see me. And that's the scariest thing I've ever experienced, scarier than any hospital. We don't have to do anything about it. We can just stay as we are, friends who saved each other. Cole was saying the words, but he didn't mean them. He wanted more. He'd wanted more for months, he realized, but had been too afraid to acknowledge it. Except I don't want to stay as we are. Vivienne leaned forward, her expression intense. I want to see where this goes. I want to risk being hurt because the alternative, spending the rest of my life wondering what if, is worse. You taught me that, Cole. You taught me that fear shouldn't make our decisions. Emma, Cole said suddenly, whatever this is, it affects her too. She's already attached to you. If this doesn't work, if we try and it falls apart, then we handle it like adults. We stay in each other's lives because we matter to each other, because the garage and the friendship are real regardless of anything else. Vivienne reached across the space between them, taking his hand. But Cole, we can't make decisions based on fear of failure. That's just another kind of running. She was right. She was absolutely right, and Cole knew it. He'd spent 5 years paralyzed by guilt and fear, and the only thing that had saved him was the night he'd refused to let fear win, the night he'd fought for Vivian's life and in doing so started fighting for his own. "Okay," he said, "let's see where this goes." Vivian's smile was brilliant, transforming her entire face. "Yeah?" "Yeah, but slow. For Emma's sake, we take it slow and make sure this is real and sustainable before we change anything major." "Agreed. Slow and careful and honest." Vivian squeezed his hand. "I can do that. I'm very good at strategic planning." Cole laughed despite the nervous energy coursing through him. "This isn't a business deal." "No, but it's an investment in both our futures, and I take my investments very seriously." Vivian's expression softened. "Besides, we've already done the hard part. We've already seen each other at our worst and decided we were worth saving. Everything else is just details." They sat there as the sun set completely, hands linked, talking about what slow meant and how to navigate this shift in their relationship. It felt both monumental and completely natural, like they'd been moving toward this moment since the night in the alley and were only just now acknowledging what had always been inevitable. Eventually, Vivian's phone buzzed with texts from Claire asking where she was and whether she needed dinner sent over, the real world intruding on their bubble. "I should go," Vivian said reluctantly. "But Cole, can we have dinner tomorrow? The three of us, you, me, and Emma. Nothing fancy, just pizza and whatever movie Emma picks. A normal evening." "She'll pick something with dragons." "Obviously. I wouldn't expect anything less." Cole walked Vivian to her car. She'd started driving herself places again, another small victory over fear, and watched her pull away into the evening traffic. Then he locked up this garage and headed home, his mind spinning with everything that had just shifted. Mrs. Chen was waiting with Emma when he got there, and one look at his face told her something had changed. "Good news or complicated news?" she asked quietly while Emma was in the bathroom. "Both, maybe. I don't know yet." Cole sank onto the couch. "Vivian and I are going to try something. We're not sure what yet, but something more than friendship." Mrs. Chen's smile was knowing. "About time. You two have been dancing around each other for months. Even Emma noticed." "Emma noticed?" "She asked me last week if you were going to marry Vivian. I told her that was a question for you, not me." Mrs. Chen patted his shoulder. "Be happy, Cole. You deserve it. And that woman is good for you, good for both of you." Emma emerged from the bathroom, immediately zeroing in on Cole's expression with unnerving accuracy. "Something happened." "What happened?" "Vivian's coming over for dinner tomorrow. Pizza and a movie night." "Is this a special dinner, like a date?" Emma's eyes went wide. "Are you dating Vivian?" Cole should have expected this. Emma was too perceptive to miss the significance. "We're figuring it out. Slowly. Would that be okay with you?" Emma considered this with her characteristic seriousness, then nodded firmly. "Vivian is nice and she likes dragons, and she helped you build the garage. Plus she needs people to be with, so she's not lonely. I think it's good." She paused. "But Daddy, does this mean I can call her Aunt Vivian officially? I've been doing it in my head, but I wasn't sure if that was allowed." Cole's heart squeezed. "You can call her whatever she's comfortable with. We'll ask her tomorrow." "Okay, I'm going to make her a special card for tomorrow, one that says thank you for being part of our family." Emma was already heading toward her room, planning. "This is a very important card, so I need to use my best markers." After she disappeared, Mrs. Chen chuckled softly. "That child has everything figured out. You could learn from her." "I'm trying to." The next evening, Vivian arrived at 6 with flowers. Practical grocery store flowers, not the expensive arrangement she probably usually bought, and an expression that suggested she was as nervous as Cole felt. Emma answered the door and immediately started her interrogation. "Vivian, can I call you Aunt Vivian? Daddy said I had to ask permission." Vivian blinked, clearly not expecting this opening. Then her expression softened into something that looked suspiciously like tears. "I would be honored if you called me that." "Good. I made you a card about being family. It's on the table." Emma grabbed Vivian's hand, tugging her inside. Also, we're watching How to Train Your Dragon because it's the best movie about second chances and also dragons, obviously. Cole watched Vivian being dragged into his small, cluttered apartment, so different from her pristine penthouse, and saw not one moment of discomfort. She settled onto the couch like she belonged there, read Emma's card with genuine emotion, and declared it the best card I've ever received, better than any business contract. They ordered pizza with extra cheese and pepperoni, Emma's favorite. They watched the movie with Emma providing running commentary about dragon behavior and drawing parallels to real-life courage. And when Emma fell asleep halfway through, curled against Vivian's side like she'd done it 100 times before, Cole felt something in his chest unlock completely. This was right. This was what he'd been too afraid to hope for. Not just survival, but actual happiness. Connection. Love, maybe, though it was too soon to use that word. But the foundation of it, the potential, was there. Vivian looked at him over Emma's sleeping form, and the understanding in her eyes said she felt it too. The terrifying, wonderful possibility of building something real. "Thank you," she mouthed silently. "For what?" Cole mouthed back. "Everything." 3 months later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Cole stood with Vivian and Emma in front of St. Catherine's Hospital, looking up at the newly completed emergency wing. The Catherine Hale Emergency Wing, the sign proclaimed, dedicated to providing excellent care with compassion and understanding. It was the official opening ceremony. Vivian had been asked to say a few words, and she'd asked Cole and Emma to stand with her while she did. The hospital administrator gave a brief introduction, talking about Vivian's generosity and vision. Then Vivian stepped to the microphone, Emma holding one hand and Cole holding the other. 9 months ago, I collapsed in an alley, dying from appendicitis, and too terrified to seek help. I'd spent 23 years avoiding hospitals because my mother died in one when I was 9 years old. That night, my fear almost killed me. Vivian's voice was strong, clear, but a stranger, a mechanic named Cole Maddox, refused to let fear win. He fought for my life when I couldn't fight for myself. He carried me through doors that terrified me and stayed with me until I learned to be brave. She paused, looking at Cole with eyes that held everything they'd built together. This emergency wing isn't just about modern equipment or efficient care, though it will provide both. It's about second chances. It's about the people who walk through these doors terrified and walk out alive. It's about doctors and nurses who see their patients as whole people, not just medical cases. And it's about breaking the cycle of fear that prevents people from getting the help they need. Vivian squeezed Emma's hand. My mother, Catherine Hale, worked 3 jobs to provide for me. She died in a hospital, but not because hospitals are evil or dangerous. She died because she waited too long to come in, because she was scared of taking time off work, of the bills, of everything going wrong. Vivian's voice caught, but she pushed through. This wing is my promise that her death, and all the deaths like hers, won't be in vain, that we'll create spaces where people feel safe seeking help, where fear doesn't have to win. She looked out at the gathered crowd, hospital staff, donors, reporters, and the small group of friends that included Claire, Mrs. Chen, and Cole's mechanics. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. Thank you to the doctors and nurses who save lives every day. And thank you to Cole, who taught me that hospitals don't always take people away. Sometimes they give them back. The crowd applauded. Emma bounced with pride. And Cole felt tears streaming down his face without shame, because this, all of this, was proof that pain could be transformed into purpose, that loss could lead to building something meaningful. After the ceremony, after the tours and the photos and the handshakes, the 3 of them walked back to Cole's van. Emma was chattering about how maybe she'd be a doctor when she grew up, or maybe a dragon veterinarian. She wasn't sure yet, but both seemed important. "Daddy, did you cry?" Emma asked with characteristic bluntness. "Yeah, Bug, I did." "Because you were sad or because you were happy?" "Both." Cole lifted Emma into her car seat. "Sometimes the biggest feelings are both at the same time." "I think that's what second chances feel like," Emma declared wisely. "Sad for what you lost, but happy for what you found." From the front passenger seat, Vivian turned to look at them both. "When did you get so smart?" "I was always smart. You just keep noticing it more." Emma grinned. Can we get ice cream? I think opening hospital wings should be celebrated with ice cream. I think that's an excellent idea. Vivian looked at Cole. What do you say? Ice cream before heading home? Cole started the van, the same battered vehicle that had carried Vivian through rain and terror 9 months ago, now decorated with even more of Emma's artwork and bearing a small second chance garage magnet on the door. Ice cream sounds perfect. They drove through the city, the three of them together, talking and laughing and planning what flavor combinations Emma would try. The sun was setting, painting everything gold, and Cole thought about how much had changed since that rainy Friday night in the alley. He'd saved Vivian's life. She'd saved his right back by giving him purpose and hope and showing him that guilt didn't have to be permanent. Emma had saved them both by reminding them what mattered: dragons and stickers and people who cared about each other. They'd all gotten second chances, and they'd used them to build something none of them could have built alone. At the ice cream shop, Emma insisted on getting dragon's breath, some combination of mango and raspberry that came with dry ice for effect. Vivian got vanilla with chocolate chips, admitting she was boring but content. Cole got coffee because he was predictable that way. They sat at a small table outside, watching people walk past in the early evening light. Emma was explaining her latest dragon drawing. This one featured a dragon teaching a smaller dragon how to breathe fire, which she said was about mentorship and passing on knowledge. She's going to be a philosopher, Vivian said quietly to Cole, or a CEO. She's got your strategic thinking. God help us all if she combines both. Vivian's smile was soft, genuine. Cole, can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy? Truly happy? Because I am, and I need to know this is real for both of us. Cole looked at Emma, carefully constructing an ice cream sculpture with intense focus. He looked at Vivian, this woman who'd fought her way through her worst nightmare and come out braver and more alive. He thought about his garage full of employees and customers, about the business that was actually succeeding, about the life he was building instead of just surviving. Yeah, he said honestly, I'm happy. Maybe for the first time since Sarah died, I'm actually genuinely happy. Good. Vivian took his hand across the table. Because I love you. I know it's only been 9 months and maybe that's too fast, but I'm done letting fear make my decisions. So I'm telling you now. I love you and I love Emma, and I love the life we're building together. Cole's heart stopped, then started again, beating harder. He should be terrified. This was too fast, too much, too risky. But he'd learned something from Vivian, from that night in the alley when she'd counted backward to 3. Fear was a liar, and sometimes the scariest thing was exactly what you needed. I love you too, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I've probably loved you since you decided to trust me enough to get in my van. I was just too afraid to admit it. Are we being sappy? Emma asked, looking up from her ice cream sculpture. Because you're both making weird faces. Very sappy, Vivian confirmed, laughing through happy tears. Is that okay with you? Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important matters. Then she nodded firmly. It's okay. Actually, it's really good, because you make Daddy happy, and Daddy makes you not lonely, and I get to have an Aunt Vivian who understands dragons. Everybody wins. Everybody wins, Cole echoed, squeezing Vivian's hand. They stayed until Emma's ice cream was gone and the sun had fully set, talking about small things and big things and everything in between. Then they drove back to the apartment. Vivian's car was still at the hospital, but Cole would take her to get it later. And Cole realized this was his life now. Not perfect, not without complications, but real and messy and full of people who mattered. As they pulled up to the apartment building, Emma unbuckled herself and leaned forward between the front seats. Daddy, did we finish looking at the monster today? Cole thought about the hospital, about the ceremony, about standing beside Vivian while she honored her mother and broke free from 23 years of fear. Yeah, Bug, I think we did. Is it smaller now? Much smaller. Good. Emma nodded with satisfaction. That's what happens when you keep looking. Eventually, the monster gets so small you can just step over it and keep going. From the passenger seat, Vivian laughed softly. Your daughter is going to rule the world someday. Probably, Cole agreed. I'm just trying to keep up. They climbed out of the van and headed upstairs together, Cole, Emma, and Vivian, carrying the remnants of ice cream and happiness and the knowledge that they'd all survived their monsters, that they'd looked at the scary things together and come out the other side stronger. Mrs. Chen was waiting on the landing, and she took one look at their faces and smiled knowingly. Good day? The best, Vivian said, and meant it. Later that night, after Emma was asleep and Vivian had finally left to get her car and head home, Cole sat alone in his living room and thought about everything that had changed since that Friday night in the rain. He'd been a man drowning in guilt, convinced he'd failed the person who mattered most. Now he was a man building a life worth living, surrounded by people who'd chosen to save each other. He pulled out his phone and texted Vivian, "Thank you for today. For the ceremony, for the ice cream, for telling me you loved me, for all of it." Her response came quickly. "Thank you for saving my life, and then for teaching me how to live it properly. I meant what I said, Cole. I love you. All of you, the broken parts and the healing parts and the parts that are still figuring it out. I love you too. Drive safe. Text me when you get home. Already home. But I'll text anyway because you worry. That's one of the things I love about you. You care so much it physically hurts you. Never change that." Cole smiled, setting his phone aside. He looked around his small apartment, Emma's drawings everywhere. The couch that was worn but comfortable, the life he'd built from the ashes of loss and guilt. It wasn't much by Vivian's standards, but it was real. It was his. It was theirs now. He thought about Sarah, about the conversation he'd never had with her but had in his head now. She would have liked Vivian, he decided. She would have appreciated someone who fought their way back to life with such fierce determination. She would have wanted him to be happy. And he was. Finally, impossibly, he was. The next morning brought autumn sunshine and Emma's excited announcement that she dreamed about the dragon who built hospitals. By noon, she'd drawn 3 versions of this dragon and declared they should all be sent to Vivian for inspiration purposes. Cole photographed them and sent them along with a message. "Your biggest fan has created medical dragons. Thought you should know." Vivian's response included a photo of her office, Emma's original dragon logo drawing now framed and hanging prominently on the wall. "Tell her I'm honored, and that I'm taking her to lunch next week to discuss her future career in hospital design. This is clearly her calling. She's 7, and already brilliant. I'm investing early." Cole laughed, shaking his head. This was his life now, texts with his girlfriend about their daughter's imaginary career in architectural medicine. Dragons everywhere, love and second chances, and the constant small miracle of being happy. 6 months later, on a spring evening when the air smelled like rain but the skies stayed clear, Cole asked Vivian to marry him. He did it in the garage because that's where everything had started to change, with Emma watching from the office and the logo dragon spread wings above them. "This is probably not romantic," he said, holding a ring he'd spent 3 months saving for. "And this place smells like motor oil. But this is where I learned to build something instead of just surviving. This is where we became family. So this is where I want to ask." Vivian was crying and laughing at the same time. "Are you asking? Will you marry me? Will you take on this mechanic and his daughter and our dragons and all the messy, complicated, beautiful things that come with second chances?" "Yes, absolutely yes." Vivian kissed him, while Emma cheered from the office window, and the garage dragons witnessed the moment that made everything official. They married 4 months later in a small ceremony that included Emma as the flower girl, Mrs. Chen as Cole's best woman, Claire as Vivian's maid of honor, and an officiant who agreed to include a reading from Emma's favorite dragon book. The ceremony was held at the garage because, as Emma explained to anyone who asked, that's where they became family, so that's where they should promise to stay family forever. Dr. Morrison attended. He and Vivian had stayed in touch, bonding over their shared mission to make hospitals less terrifying. He told Cole privately that he'd never seen a recovery like Vivian's, that love really did heal people in ways medicine couldn't. The reception was held in the parking lot, strung with lights and filled with people from both their worlds, mechanics and business executives, neighbors and clients, everyone who'd been part of building this second chance. And when Cole danced with Vivian under those lights, with Emma between them because she insisted on being included, He thought about the night in the alley, how he'd heard Vivian say, "I can't go," and recognized the words that had haunted him for 5 years, how he'd refused to let fear win twice. "What are you thinking about?" Vivian asked, reading his expression. "About how you saved me back. We saved each other. That's what makes it work." Emma tugged on both their hands. "Are we happy now? Is this the happy ending?" Cole and Vivian exchanged looks, then Vivian knelt to Emma's level. "This isn't the ending, sweetheart. This is the beginning. The part where we actually live instead of just surviving. The part where the dragon and the mechanic and the little girl build something amazing together." "Good," Emma declared, "because I have a lot more dragons to draw, and I need you both to help me name them." They danced until the stars came out, surrounded by people who mattered, building a future that looked nothing like the past and everything like hope. And somewhere in the night sky, perhaps Sarah looked down and smiled, knowing that Cole had finally learned the lesson she'd been trying to teach him all along. That love was worth the risk, that second chances were real, that monsters got smaller when you looked at them with people who understood, and that sometimes the scariest moment of your life could lead to the most beautiful beginning you'd never dared to imagine.